Regular we are recording, says Dylan Becker. Here we are at the April 6, 2022 regular meeting of the Historic Preservation Commission of the City of Manitou Springs. And I'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. And I'll go ahead and also do a little roll call here. If folks would like to introduce themselves, I'll start off myself. I'm Douglas Edmondson, Chair of the Historic Preservation Commission.
Susan Presti, Vice Chair.
Joy Porter, member.
Joy?
Uh-huh. Did you hear me?
I did hear you.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yes.
Yeah. So Ann Nichols, member.
Ann?
And it's to you, Tamala. You're on mute, Tamala.
Yeah, you're muted, Tamala.
Hi, I'm Tamala Wright. I'm the slow one.
Okay, well, we have a fairly full agenda this evening. But it doesn't seem like it's going to be too exhausting. And we'll go ahead and start off with section 2, approval of minutes from our last meeting, which was basically a consulting meeting with the city attorney about our operations, ethics, things of that nature. Does anybody have anything they'd like to add to or subtract from the minutes, or anything they would like to bring to our attention? No?
No, I didn't find anything, but I often miss things.
Well, I have a couple of just typos,
Oh,
Okay.
good.
corrections.
I count on that, Susan.
Yeah.
Sorry, but that's
Oh, I love it. I love it that you do that because it's so good.
so on our packet, page 5, 2/3 of the way down, there's a sentence that says Commissioner Nichols stated that other sections of the conflict of interest memo, I think that should be included personal communications rather than including.
Okay.
If you all can, Dylan, if you can catch that. And then on the next page, page 6, under item 4, the first sentence, Chair Edmondson stated there were letters received from residents regarding an MCAC approval, and there's an additional word regarding that just needs to be deleted.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the last sentence in the next paragraph, well, I guess it's the only sentence. Yeah, the last sentence should be Mr. Flanagan rather than MFR Flanagan.
Right.
It's truly a typo.
Right.
Those
Very
are the
good.
3 corrections I saw.
Very good. Okay, well, I think that's been recorded, and our secretary will correct those items. And if that is all, I'll look for a motion for approval of the minutes.
I move approval as corrected.
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And we'll go ahead and conduct, since we're still Zoom link at this point in time, we'll go ahead and just conduct raising of the hands and an aye, so that we're double sure of what we're listening to, what we're voting on. Very good. Okay. Do we have any unfinished business? Dylan?
No unfinished business.
Okay. All right, well, we'll go ahead and move on to item 3, new business. Under item 3, new business, we have our first item, HD 2201, Historic District Modification, Commercial Core Subdistrict, 10 Old Man's Trail and 487 El Paso Boulevard, respectively, City of Manitou Springs applicants. And I can kick this off by saying I think we all know that this is the request to bring the Hiawatha Gardens and Grounds back into the historic district of the core district of Manitou Springs. And Dylan, can you give us a dialogue of what that would entail?
Yeah, let me share my screen here. Don't like how that is, but can't seem to fix it.
Right, well, can we all see Dylan's screen?
Yes.
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 Yeah.
Okay. Do any of our attendees in the audience, are you able to see Dylan's screen? If not, let us know, please.
So I'll do it this way. So the item is the historic district modification to the commercial core subdistrict for 10 Old Man's Trail and 487 El Paso Boulevard. That's Hiawatha Gardens. The process for historic designations is outlined in Code Section 1704040D of the Historic Preservation Regulations. The code requires a work session to be held with City Council. That has changed as of last night. So there won't be a work session prior to the hearing with City Council should this be forwarded. Following this process allows for the code requirements to be met. Skip that because it's no longer applicable. The district modification proposal, the city proposes a modification to the existing commercial core subdistrict boundary to re-enter the property and to better serve a rehabilitation and restoration of the existing structure and redevelopment of the property located at 10 Old Man Trail and 487 El Paso Boulevard. The entire property encompasses approximately 1.84 acres of land and was included in the original historic district created by the Historic Preservation Commission in 1980. The property was removed from the original district in 1996 due to a lack of historical knowledge of the property. And at the time, it was thought that not much of the historic integrity remained and the property was removed from the district. However, due to a recent assessment, it has been determined that the intact Queen Truss roof structure, beaded paneling, wood columns, and maple wood dance floor are key components of the original concert, theater, and dance hall. Some local citizens have since requested that the property be re-included in the commercial core subdistrict to aid in the preservation of the existing historic components of the property while it undergoes redevelopment in the future for city use. This is a little map of the location there. It's adjacent, as you can see, to the commercial core subdistrict, which it would be re-entered into if approved. So the property was assessed by Jake Lloyd of Felsberg, Holt, and Ullevig. He is in the attendees tonight. So following my presentation, if you have questions for him, he's available. The Hiawatha Gardens property was included in the original Manitou Springs Local Historic District, which was formed in 1980. The original boundary encompassed most of the properties within the city limits at the time. And in 1996, the boundary of the original district was reduced to remove undeveloped and non-contributing areas to the district. Due to the lack of historical knowledge of the Hiawatha Gardens property, the perception at the time was the property did not possess any historic significance, and the site was removed from the district. A structural assessment in 2019 determined that there were several 1950s additions to the original structure, which were structurally deficient, while the original 1900 era dance hall was considered structurally sound. The original Hiawatha Gardens was constructed in the 1890s by Colonel L.M. Smith and Charles E. Allison as a private resort that offered drinking and gambling for gentlemen only. The original building was a cross-gabled two-story Victorian structure. In 1897, Colonel Smith constructed an open pavilion south of the original structure and was used as a family concert hall between 1897 and 1904. In 1903, a theater fly tower was constructed at the south end of the concert hall by the Hiawatha Park Opera Company, which hosted a diverse variety of events from vaudeville acts to boxing matches. The maple floor, still in existence, is believed to have been constructed during this time period. In 1920, a large fire erupted in the city, which was the cause of the destruction of the original Gentlemen's Club. The fire department responded to the property and was able to save the concert hall despite the loss of the original Victorian structure to the fire. During the big band era of the 1930s, dance halls became increasingly popular and canvas siding was added to the concert hall, which was until that time an open structure. The canvas material allowed for the canvas to be rolled up during warmer seasons. Hiawatha Gardens during this period became one of the most well-known and popular theater and dance hall venues in the region. Big bands such as Glenn Gray, Fred Waring, and Paul Whiteman orchestras, as well as Ralph Emerson, Duke Ellington, and Jimmy Dorsey played at this venue. In 1958, the site was turned into a restaurant called the Sundown Lounge, and in the 1970s became a house of prime rib. In 1995, the property again changed hands and became the Tahini Alami Moroccan restaurant. During this time, the dance hall structure was not in use. Previously, Hiawatha Gardens had not been surveyed for historical significance, but thanks to the research of local historian Deborah Harrison and the Hiawatha Gardens Task Force, an understanding of the building's history, prior uses, and how it influenced and shaped the events of Manitou Springs was fleshed out. The historic significance of the property was determined by the research done by Ms. Harrison and the task force, and in the application of the National Historic Register of Historic Places criteria for evaluation. The criteria are listed on page 6 of the assessment performed by Jake Lloyd of Felsberg, Holt, and Olivig. Historic resources meeting at least one of the 4 criteria for significance mentioned must also possess integrity of location, design, setting, materials, workmanship, feeling, and association. The recent removal of the 1921 era north structure and addition of the modern asphalt pavement encompassing much of the site has diminished the integrity of the property's setting. Despite this, the intact queen truss roof structure, beaded paneling, wood columns, and maple wood dance floor are key components of the original concert theater and dance hall. As the surviving dance floor is one of the few surviving dance floors built during the height of popularity of such venues, the consultant found that the property does retain sufficient integrity of location, design, materials, workmanship, feeling, and association to support its potential significance under criterion A for associations with the development and evolution of tourism. The addition of the Hiawatha Gardens property would add approximately 2.22 acres to the commercial core subdistrict.
Dylan,
Yes.
I'd like to interrupt just for a moment. I was asked by Denise Howell if you could please bring Catherine Vera over. She is from our legal team. And thank you for your patience and time and your dialogue.
Yep, I will have to stop sharing to do that.
Okay.
Okay. The criteria for designation under section 1704.040B is provided. And that's basically what you're basing the decision for re-entering this properties into the district. Staff's recommendation. Staff recommends the Historic Preservation Commission recommend approval to City Council regarding the change to the local historic district boundaries, the commercial core subdistrict, in the area of the Hiawatha Gardens property at 10 Old Man's Trail and 487 El Paso Boulevard, with the finding that the proposed change meets the criteria for establishment of a historic district per section 1704.040 of the Historic Preservation Regulations as follows. 1, the area to be re-entered into the local historic preservation district does convey a sense of historic or architectural cohesiveness. 2, the area to be re-entered into the local historic preservation district does contain properties that have historic significance or retain a high degree of integrity. 3, the area to be re-entered into the local historic preservation district does contain properties that embody distinctive characteristics of a style, type, period, or method of construction, or are a valuable example of the use of indigenous materials or craftsmanship. 4, the area to be re-entered into the local historic preservation district does meet the required criteria. And that concludes the presentation on that item. If you have questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Are there any questions from the commission at this point?
You know, Doug, at this point, I guess the one thing I'd like clarification on, as you know, I'm on the Hiawatha Gardens Task Force and
Okay,
have been on all 3 of them that have existed. The current Task Force 3 has a charge from City Council under a resolution. And in general, that charge is to look at retaining the quote unquote historic portions of the structure. And as you are all aware, there was a request like this, a nomination from the same resident, Brian Murphy, about 5 years ago that went before the HPC, and I was a part of the HPC at that time. And we did recommend inclusion. The big difference this time is, of course, the north end of the building has been demolished, removed because of its lack of structural integrity. So the question, and maybe it's one for our attorney, the task force really has not been involved at all in the question of whether or not this structure as it currently exists should be re-entered into the historic district. Our focus has been on hiring an architect, getting a design for restoration, rehabilitation of the building, and site designs. And as the ordinance required, we have been part of, I think, in a big way, the request to have this commission consider whether it meets the requirements under city code to be added back to the historic district. So in my view, I don't believe I have a conflict of interest, but I think we need a reading on that.
okay. Well, that's a very good question, and I do have a couple questions myself. But let's go ahead and engage Commissioner Nichols. Question is that from our legal team, from their standpoint, do they feel that there is a conflict of interest in this case because of Ann's participation in the task force?
Yeah, and can you just please restate for me what the involvement in the task force entails? And sorry, I joined a little late today. My name's Katie Vera. I work with Austin Flanagan. I'm with Hoffman, Parker, Wilson, and Carberry. I haven't been with you guys yet, but it's nice to meet you all, and I look forward to working with you.
Right. So Katie,
We'll go. I'm going to go ahead and say that, Katie, from my desk, from what I see, the task force involvement has been as an advisory basis only to help inform the public and get and activates events to bring this to City Council's attention, HPC's commission attention. I don't believe there's been any change, any money's changing hand in this, or any sort of contracts that would seem like some sort of financial commitment to either. Go ahead, Nan.
Yeah, there's clearly not a financial conflict of interest. The question would be whether there's a perception of bias because of the involvement that our task force has had for a number of years now in looking at the potential reuse of that structure. The one thing I would say is that our task force has not taken any position on whether or not, or have even looked at whether or not this building meets the criteria under city code to be part of the historic district, especially given the fact that the north end has been removed. So I guess I would say from my own standpoint, I had remained completely open-minded about whether or not that removal would have changed the decision that the commission made 5 years ago when the entire building was intact. And am relying on FHU's and staff's input on whether or not that fundamentally changed its ability to be re-added back to the historic district.
Okay, yeah, and I'll just say, thank you for that clarification. I think based on that clarification, your involvement with the task force, and they're sort of being screened from any decision that would, affect this matter that's before us, that I don't think it constitutes a conflict.
Okay, thank you, Katie.
And then I have a question. I'm also on the transportation, the map board. And when they were talking about what to do with the building, I recused myself and went out of the meeting until they were finished. So I wouldn't hear their discussion of what they wanted, since it was coming before the HPC.
Okay, and so you had no involvement in that vote?
Oh, not in the vote or in the discussion. I just left the meeting because I was uncomfortable that it might conflict with this meeting. And so I left the meeting and went back to it when they were done with that item.
Okay, thank you for disclosing. I think that's fine. I don't think that presents a conflict. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Very good, very good. Do we have any other commissioners that need to disclose any sort of information or influence or with the Hiawatha Gardens project? Okay, so I am also going to disclose that I have been involved in some of the community meetings. As from a citizen standpoint, I haven't given too much input as far as decision making. My input has been from a historic standpoint only, sharing family stories, things of that nature. I did survey the building when it was first purchased by the city of Manitou Springs as a member of the Manitou Springs Heritage Center. At that time, I wasn't afraid to bring a hammer and saw and break open a couple walls and look for some things. Unfortunately, there used to be a beautiful Manitou greenstone fireplace in there that was defaced back in the 1950s and had been torn out. But again, my decision making on the inclusion of this or exclusion either or of this building into the historic district will not be influenced by any of that. I'll be looking at the guidelines and staff recommendations, and of course, where we're at with this and what would be in the best interest of our community.
Okay, thank you. I think that's all good.
Very good. Okay, and I do have one question for Dylan at the beginning of your presentation, and thank you very much for your presentation and the comprehensive historic background. My hat's off to all who participated in that. Am I clear on if we vote to bring this back into the historic district, that there is no work session review by council or vote by council, or does it just go to a straight vote by council?
So that section of the code was removed at second reading last night. That does take effect, I think, 5 days after that decision.
Okay.
So I'll leave.
That was what the Jeff said, that Mr. Parker said, was that because we're a quasi judicial commission, that it really shouldn't go to a work session. It should go directly to the council for them to vote on our recommendation.
Right, and it does go directly to council. I mean, they
For
went
their
to
vote.
a public hearing, yes.
Okay,
exactly.
very good.
Yeah.
Well, very good. Well, it sounds like we have quite a responsibility on our hands. So at this point, do we have any more questions or comments by Commissioner Jessan?
I think it would be helpful, Doug, if we could hear from Jake, FHU.
Yeah, I was getting ready to
Yes.
step into that. You bet.
Specifically on their opinion about the impact the removal of the north end had on the relevance of
Right.
the building being put back in the historic district.
Right, very good, Ann. Well, thank you. And yeah, let's go ahead and bring Jake Lloyd over. I think Jade is basically acting in the capacity as a representative for the city and the Hiawatha Gardens project. Jake, how are you this evening?
I'm great. Great to see everyone. Thanks for having me tonight.
Very good.
Yeah, so to Ann's question regarding how losing a portion of the building affects the building's significance. And this is really why I tried to outline how we evaluate properties for historic significance by illustrating the criteria A, B, C, and D as identified and outlined through the National Register bulletins for the different significance criteria that this is how we essentially evaluate properties for historic significance. I think having that portion of the building having been lost, the northern 1921 refreshments area portion definitely plays into the effect of how the building might be considered significant under criterion C. Typically a building that's intact and has a lot of its architectural characteristics and features in place, which this dance hall does, would be considered under criterion C. However, loss of a significant portion of the building, I think, does sort of affect its potential significance under that criteria. But it does also possess significance just for its associations with Manitou Springs, early tourism and entertainment and recreational associations. And that's why I think despite the fact that the northern end of the building's been lost, the dance hall still does convey that significance. And from what I know of the building, I haven't been inside the structure, but from photographs and things that have been provided through the work of the task force and from staff, we do understand that the real key components of that structure, of that dance hall structure, are intact and can still represent sort of the feel and association of the dance hall era and how it contributed to the entertainment aspects of the community in the late 19th and early 20th century. So that's really all I have to say about that. I think there is still potential for pretty strong potential for criterion A significance at this point.
Okay, do any of the commissioners have any questions for Mr. Lloyd? Ann?
I'd have one more, I guess. Remembering back to the discussion the commission had 5 years ago, I think it was, when this came before us at that point, one of the factors we had to determine at that point was whether the structure was under the definitions in our code contributing or non-contributing. And I'm assuming, since you're doing inventory forms in the next month or two, that as part of that work, you will make that finding. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah, we're doing additional research beyond what's been prepared by Deborah Harrison and the task force to really uncover everything else that we can about the site's potential significance and just its background and use and so forth. And when we make what we're doing is preparing the architectural inventory forms. Those are building survey forms that are provided by History Colorado, and in those forms is a actual discussion on its National Register significance and whether or not it does in fact contribute to a historic district such as the one that it would be added back into. So yes, that will be part of the next phase of this project.
Right. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions for Mr. Lloyd? Yes, Susan.
So given that fact that you just shared about preparing the inventory and the analysis, are we looking at this prematurely, or can we make the decision based on just what has been presented to us? Is that enough criteria to make this decision?
I think that's really this commission's call. You know, a lot of information has been uncovered. I don't think I think if anything, the additional evaluation will evaluate if there's any other of those 4 criteria that the building or property is potentially significant under. You know, if you look at like criterion B, for instance, that's associations with people of significance that could be uncovered. I think either way, there's been enough information that's been presented over the years through the various groups of interest to determine that this structure is significant under criterion A. But that's really a call for the commission at this point. And I'm not sure, you know, what the urgency is to making this decision tonight, but I think a lot of information's out there.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Good, thank you.
I'm comfortable enough to make a decision.
Yeah, and I think the urgency is the building is protected right now, but it's going to need care. And I think getting it on a national register, doing different things like that will help preserve it. You know, I've been inside when it was the restaurants. I've been inside when it was still attached to some kitchens, and went through it, and was also in the basement of the north end that was removed. I guess it's the north end, but it's really quite a grand building inside on the dance floor, and the way the walls are, the trusses, it's just pretty amazing.
And I will add that, you know, it was, as Dylan mentioned, originally part of the historic, the local historic district when that was originally formed many decades ago. And, you know, it did, this structure did have sort of a series of phases of development and changes to the actual structure. And when you know, when you're evaluating a historic district boundary like that, if you're not evaluating every property individually, it's pretty hard to, I mean, I'm not, you know, when we did the historic survey plan, for instance, weren't able to uncover a lot of information of how the district was redefined in 1996. It wasn't exactly clear. There was some information provided about how the boundary was changing, but there wasn't a justification for what led to those changes. And so this property has never been formally evaluated. And I think a lot of that is the result of it just having all of these additional additions and pieces that have been added and tacked on over time. And really the historic, you know, shell of the building, the original structure was just disguised for so long. And prior to the work of the task force, I think a lot of people just overlook the property, and that's common. I mean, it's hard to make those decisions and have an in-depth understanding without looking at every property individually. So I don't think it's that big a surprise that it was removed. I think it, you know, looking at pictures of when it was the last restaurant use, it is pretty hard to see its original bones. And when you start peeling back all the layers, then you start to expose it, and it's like, oh, okay, there's a lot more there, but sometimes it's not entirely clear at face value. So.
Okay, well, very good. At this time, I think since this is a item on our agenda, we do have a letter from Mr. Murphy supporting a motion to bring this back into the historic district. Do we have anyone attending or any audience that would like to make any comments to this particular agenda item? Any hands, Dylan?
I don't see any.
Okay. Any other comments from commissioners before we make a motion on this particular item?
I really thought this was gonna go to the dirt. I I'm so thrilled. Because I kept hearing, well, 41 parking spaces is what this will create. And so to see that, it just makes me teary-eyed that the community came together on this building. So, yay. So I recommend the approval. Do you want me to do all that? Or Anne?
Well, I would like to
Been part of
definitely,
this a really long time too.
I would really like to state that this kind of really strikes at the spirit of what the Historic Preservation Commission is about. We have an opportunity to preserve a wonderful old building. It's very rare. Many of these buildings met the wrecking ball or turned into a garage, or were torn out or modified to the point where they're barely recognizable. Many of the original materials being removed. I've been in this building. The old truss beams, it's built like a bridge inside with all the wainscot or car siding or beadboard or whatever you want to call it, the posts and the dance floor. The potential for this to be utilized in the future in whatever way may be deemed necessary by our council and other people in this. They have a really wonderful palette to work with. So who would like to make a motion on this?
And it was just a question, Doug, and maybe Anne, you could answer this. When it comes to the inside of the building, does it come before the HPC then also, because it's a public building?
And that's probably a better question for Katie, but yes, our code, I believe, since it is a public building, would cover also changes to the historic interior. As Doug said, the historic interior is basically the trusses, the columns, the support columns, and the floor.
Okay.
Yeah, so, but it would cover that. Yeah, I think it
Okay.
would.
Yeah, thanks, Anne. That's correct. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very good.
So
So-
I'd like to make a motion if everybody's ready. I would move to recommend City Council modify the local historic district commercial core sub-district to include 10 Old Man's Trail and 487 El Paso Boulevard.
I second it.
All in favor?
I,
Very good. Well, I'm thrilled that we were able to get that before council. And I believe, I don't think we're premature. I think getting on this and making it happen, opens up doors for funding and other grants and for buildings like this. So very good show. Let's
So
go
Dylan,
ahead
will
and
you send that on to council, the recommendation?
do I need to do that?
No, I was just asking Dylan, did we do enough?
Yeah, I will forward that recommendation on to City Council.
Okay,
It should be on the May 3rd City Council agenda.
okay.
Very good. And that's, again, it was just this inclusion, very simple, couple of small paragraphs. They vote on it, there it goes. So I'm glad to see that process streamlined. Okay, let's go ahead and move on to item 3, MCAC 2201. Material change of appearance, certification, exterior alterations, roof reconstruction at 194 Shelton Road. Andrea Keist Freeman and John Abraham applicants. Dylan, I go ahead and take a drink of water and a deep breath before you regale us with the dialogue for this, and then we'll go ahead and bring over the applicants.
Doug, do you want to do your question on conflict of interest and ex parte communication for the remaining 2 items?
Yeah, I can go ahead and do that at this time. I was going to do it one by one, but I'll go ahead and do it for the 2 items that are here. And thank you, Ann. I guess I should probably speak up since I live in the since my family's namesake is the Keithley Cabin Historic District, and both items coming up are part of that. I will go ahead and say some in a minute. Is there anyone on the commission right now that has any sort of ex parte communication interests that would dissuade them or influence their decision making around these next 2 items? That would be MCAC 2201 and MCAC 2202. as seen in your packages.
No, I don't.
For
No.
the second one for 2 Keithley Road, I did get a letter from the architect and I disclosed all of that. I already talked to Dylan about that. And I understand just because I got the letter doesn't mean that it's a conflict of interest. I have no financial gain in it. Okay.
Very good. Okay, and I have received a letter for both of these since I am in the proximity of both of them, particularly this one right here, 194 Shelton. It was actually a bit of a surprise to me. I didn't know that they were doing anything over there, and I'll talk about that further. I've just gone over and looked at the building. The 2 Keithley Road project, I have actually intentionally distanced myself from any sort of communication with the owners of this property. I met them once prior to COVID-19 when they were surveying a property right after its purchase. I did not see any of the plans or blueprints for this building up until I received the package. And as much as this may personally involve my house, I have no financial commitment to this. And my feelings are, at the end of the day, is that despite what this may do or have any implications towards my house or roads or anything of that nature, it is their right to develop this property. And as long as they're within guidelines and they can satisfy the rest of the commission, then by all means, let them build their house.
Is it, I don't disagree, Doug, at all. I just have a question, if I could, to the lawyer. Does the perception that Doug's family and his middle name, everything is on this, is there a perception problem, and is that a conflict? I want to make sure, because it's real important that we all can contribute this.
Doug, can you just clarify how your family is associated with this item? Just for my understanding, I don't really have any background on that.
Okay, so the background is the Keithley Cabin Historic District, the sub-district, is named for my great-grandfather, my great-grandparents, who originally developed this area back in the early 1920s, starting in 1919 with the first buildings. It was included in the original historic survey of the city of Manitou Springs as being contributing. I've personally, now being 4th generation and owner of the core of the historic district, have been diligent in maintaining my buildings to as much as original as possible, particularly exterior wise. You know, I did recuse myself from one hearing recently because it was for a gentleman who's building a house that overlooks part of our property that I had lunch with, and I'm buddies with, and I'm buddies with his builder, and I was kind of tight with those guys. And so I felt it necessary to recuse myself. But outside of the name of the road and that this is the Keithley subdivision, that's my only association per se with this. You know, I don't have any influence over these individuals on how they build their house, how they designed it, what they're going to do with their property, so on and so forth. You know, it's when we get to it, I will express some well, my hat's off to the fact that they were able to fit a house in on this very small lot. But again, I don't have any sort of skin in the game, as they say.
Okay, so just to clarify, you don't have any personal economic interest, and neither do any of your family members?
We do not. I am the only family member that is associated with the ownership of the historic district. And I do not have any sort of financial. In fact, I recently sent some drawings to the city about some drainage issues that were done by engineers. And the only thing that I do around here is I plow the roads with my own tractor.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
Certainly. So are we going to go ahead and move forward with the item 3 MCAC 2201, material change of appearance for 194 Shelton Road? And that is a that is exterior alteration, roof reconstruction. Dylan?
That is correct. So MCAC 2201 proposes exterior alterations to a contributing resource at 194 Shelton Road. The nature of the request, the roof form modifications to the existing contributing one-story cabin and existing addition. The modification proposes removal of the existing roof structures and reframing of the main gable to increase the pitch from a 412 to a 612 and extended to cover the existing addition. There is no change to the existing footprint of the original cabin or addition. The preservation and repair of existing logs on the main cabin structure. Applicant proposes replacement of the log siding on the front facade and vertical wood lap siding on the left, right, and rear elevations of the existing addition with vertical board and batten siding. I did receive word from the applicant that they may be deciding to at least clad the front facade of that addition with either by replacing the existing log siding with a similar material or repairing what is there. But I will let them respond to that when it's their turn to speak. The application proposes board and batten siding on the gable ends of the new roof to match the proposed materials for siding on the less visible areas of the structure, with new paired windows centered in the gable ends. There are numerous window replacements, several new window placements, and several window removals as part of the exterior alterations. The roofing material proposed is a dark brown architectural style composition shingle. And the main gable does run parallel to Shelton Road, which is how it is currently and typical for the log cabin district. The existing front door and main entrance to the cabin will remain unchanged. The applicants propose a new sliding glass door on the front facade of the existing addition facing Shelton Road. And that accesses one of the proposed bedrooms under the new configuration. And a solid steel door on the addition, which is, if you're looking at it, just to the left of the proposed sliding glass door, and that would be accessing a storage area. They also propose extension of the existing chimney, adjusted to accommodate the new roof height pitch and to meet current fire code regulations. The exterior downcast wall-mounted sconce light adjacent to the storage door on the existing addition appears to be a barn style in design, but I will allow the applicants to confirm that. Here you have side by side the front elevations and how those look comparatively. You can see the higher roof pitch, as well as the extension of the chimney and the proposed changes to the existing addition that are visible from Shelton Road. They do propose, as mentioned earlier, replacement of these paired 1/1 windows. And the proposed replacement for that, I believe, is wood windows. And here you can see the proposed new sliding glass door and 2 new window placements above, as well as the steel door. On the left elevation, you can see the existing addition and how that would be incorporated under the proposed new roof pitch to sort of incorporate and make that a little more uniform, at least on the back side. It does, the existing addition is sort of set back a good ways on the house, and it does appear secondary even under the proposed changes. They are proposing a replacement of the existing wood lap siding with that board and batten siding on this elevation. And you can see the proposed new window placement in the gable end as well. On the right elevation, again, you can see the difference in the proposed roof pitches, the addition of that window in the gable end, and the extension of the chimney. I'll mention there are no changes proposed to the existing front porch, and that will remain as is. But they do also propose the replacement of that wood lap siding with the board and batten siding. And on the existing gable ends, there's essentially like a rollout asphalt material between some trim, basically. So the staff does feel it is an improvement to the aesthetic and appearance, and more congruous with the design guidelines to go with that board and batten material in the gable ends. On the back side, which is not visible from Shelton Road or any roadway, you can see some of the changes they're proposing on the rear, such as removing this window and replacing it with another sliding glass door, similar to what's proposed on the front. Replacement of the windows and an extension or enlargement of this back window. Currently, the roofing material there on the back addition is it's a metal roof, and basically due to the current pitch of the existing roof and the very low pitch of the metal roof, they have has a bit of a hard time with water runoff, and it's caused some potential damage to the structure, which is why they're proposing the change to the roof. This is the visibility of the structures from Shelton Road. These pictures are a little dated. They came from Google Maps, which has a date of 2011. But you get the general idea. From the front facade, you can see the main cabin structure, and just tucked back there is the existing addition that sort of peeks out on that side there. From the left side, it's fairly well covered, at least under the summer foliage. On the right side, with more vegetation, it's very hard to see this from the road, at least using Google Maps. And the rear, of course, is not visible from Shelton Road or any public right-of-way. Based on the staff report, staff recommends approval of the proposed exterior alterations at 194 Shelton Road based on the application information provided with the staff report, and with the finding the request is consistent with the purpose of the historic preservation regulations to promote and encourage private rehabilitation and ownership of historic structures with the following conditions. The chimney extension shall match the stonework of the existing chimney in appearance and materials. 2, the 1/1 double hung windows adjacent to the front entry on the original cabin shall be repaired and refurbished or replaced with solid wood 1/1 double hung windows. 3, all other replacement windows shall match the style and appearance of the windows in which they replace, and either be solid wood or clad in wood to maintain a historic appearance. Any windows with divided lights shall contain exterior grids. 4, new windows shall be solid wood or clad in wood. 5, the replacement door accessing the storage area shall be clad in the same siding material approved for use on this elevation or of a material approved by the commission. 6, the proposed new entryway on the front facade of the addition visible from Shelton Road shall be a French style door or of a style approved by the commission. That is referring to the sliding glass door, which is not typical in the log cabin district. 6, the proposed new entryway. Oh, that's the one I just read. 7, trim materials and dimensions shall be submitted to the planning department for review and approval prior to the issuance of a property improvement permit. 8, the siding on the front facade of the addition facing Shelton Road shall maintain consistency in appearance with the original log cabin construction. 9, the exterior lighting fixture shall maintain the barn style appearance and be downcast. Those are the staff recommendations, and I'm available for questions.
Dylan, on the steel door, what is there now? What is the door made out of now?
It's
I
an
don't
old
re-
wood door. It's an old wood
I
door.
couldn't tell because I'm
Yeah.
doors can be, just guys. So it's a wood door now.
It looks like a barn door.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Any other questions for Dylan go ahead, Tammy.
The existing logs in that, I thought they had the chinking and on the, especially on that one side. I'm completely wrong. There's no chinking log.
Are you referring to the addition on the front facade?
The existing, yeah. But even what's existing. Oh, where's
Yeah.
my
So it has an existing log siding currently.
chinking?
No.
No. Okay.
No,
And,
it's just old quarter round siding.
and is it visible then from the road with or without the foliage, depending on the season? It's visible from three sides.
So the trees in front of that addition here are, it appears to be a juniper tree, and there's another one just behind it, I believe.
Yeah, I remember seeing it.
The answer to that, Joy, is no, not very well. You can see the front of the building and the addition to the south, but the buildings and foliage to the north, and particularly the building to the south, obstruct most of the views of the sides and obviously the back.
Unless someone cuts the foliage, right?
Well,
If it was
yeah.
cut down.
Or there's a fire or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, just.
Yeah.
Okay, because I
Trees
saw
terminate,
it.
that's for sure.
I saw the foliage and it's beautiful, but then it sometimes goes away.
It does. Okay, any other questions for Dylan from commissioners? Okay, well, let's go ahead and bring over the applicant and hear from them.
Hello. I will get my camera going here. Okay.
Hello.
Good evening, Ms. Keist. How are you this evening?
Good evening. I'm here with my husband, John. He's over here as well. So we're just on a small laptop.
Okay, commissioners, do we have any questions for the applicants?
Should they introduce themselves, state their.
Oh,
address
yes,
and-
right. Excuse me. I apologize. Yes, good evening, Miss. Is it Keist?
It's actually Keist.
Andrea Keist?
Correct.
Good evening,
Yeah.
Andrea Keist. Can you introduce yourself and your husband and give us your current address?
Yes, my name is Andrea Keist. This is my husband, John Abraham. We purchased 194 Shelton Road last fall. And we are currently at 13711 Brighton Park in Houston, Texas.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Well, thank you for your application and the interest in the Keithley Historic District. Commissioners, do we have any questions for the applicants, or do you have any comments?
I mean, unless, if you want to share anything, we certainly are willing to listen. I just had a couple of questions about the windows. And it sounds like you're replacing all the windows. Is that correct?
Correct. Yes, some will be relocated though on the addition, on the non-conforming addition. We're probably 18 inches from the property line, so we will be boarding up and blocking off a window. So, but other than that, we're going to replace all of the windows, as Dylan mentioned, wood clad, with the exception of the real windows in the front porch area.
Okay, and it is your intention then to preserve the front door and the 4 double hungs that are underneath your porch and the original facade. What is the original part of the building? Basically, sounds like it's going to go untouched pretty much.
Absolutely. I wish we could refurbish those windows. I just really don't know how we could. You know, that's where we get cold every morning, every evening, is by those front windows. So a double pane window would be nice to have. So I'd consider any recommendation. I just don't know about the refurbishment. That's something I'm not really familiar with. And if it's actually possible to make an energy efficient window without it being completely new.
Storm windows here, I can turn. I have storm windows that are a second layer for me on my historic windows. And it's a possibility if you want to look into that. They work great. They slide. They've been in here for about 40 years.
We have a couple. It looks like they actually, on the left elevation, put storm windows over the original window. One of the windows is completely removed though. So literally that glass is so thin and flimsy. I'm even afraid to open it. It's a sliding window. So I did consider that. I'm not familiar, you know, I'd like to keep them as authentic as possible and love the look of a wood window as well. Versus the aluminum storm windows. So we're trying to remove, you know, the 2 aluminum windows right now and getting some wood clad windows in that side.
That is a condition.
Yeah, I do believe that was part of staff recommendations, that if windows are replaced, and it might be some sort of code requirement, since you are redoing more than 50% of the building, it might pull the trigger from the regional building department that they'll want to see some sort of energy efficiency there. But if they're done, you know, according to our secondary recommendations of replacement in a wood sash window replacement in kind, again, that's under staff recommendations this commission has found. So you can have you can replace them with a wood sash window, double glazed, get the efficiency you want and still keep the old timey look.
Yeah, definitely. And that's our goal, is to really preserve the appearance and the intent of the construction. So, and I do agree with all the staff recommendations with getting some French style doors on that addition as well. So I think it will look better.
For sure. Since it's the master bedroom for sheer privacy, I would suggest possibly. Yeah. Right. Well, let's go ahead, Dylan, and open up for some public comment on this. Thank you both. We're going to keep you waiting in the wings, they say, to answer any questions that may come from our public comment part of this item.
Sure.
So let's go ahead and move into that, Dylan. And if there's somebody who's got a hand up there, they can come over and introduce themselves with their name and their current address.
All right, it does not look like I'm seeing any hands at the moment.
Okay. Well, I'll go ahead and put it out there one more time for our attendees. If anybody has any comments for this, Please raise your hands. We will stop at any time if that comes if that happens. At this point, commissioners, what are our feelings on this MCAC?
I think you have to close the public meeting for our.
Oh, do I need to close public comment? Okay. Dylan, no hands. No hands.
hands.
Okay. We'll go ahead and close public comment. Thank you, Joy.
Mhm. Well, I mean, I think the staff recommendation about using a French door instead of a sliding door, because I don't see sliding doors in the cabin district. I think a French door, there's many kinds that looks more cabin-y, if that's a word. I think that was a good part of the recommendation on that door. I'm concerned about a steel door and how you clad steel. I'm not quite sure how you do that. And why it couldn't be a wooden door to match like the front original door, but.
Okay, any other input or comments from commissioners?
I'm really glad they're gonna keep the chimney. Believe it or not, that's a visual, large and visual on that side. And in the front porch, because that is a prime example of the log cabin district, you know, with that nice porch that's set back. Yeah, they're gonna keep all that, thank goodness.
Okay, so have any of the commissioners made a site visit to this?
Yeah, I went by, I couldn't see very much because of the foliage. I did have a question, Doug.
Yeah.
It said in the materials that the rounded log siding used in the front facade of the existing addition, which is visible, is proposed to be replaced by vertical board and batten siding. Is that would not be good if it's visible to get rid of that log look.
The way I understand it is number 8, condition number 8.
Is
address-
that covered by 8?
Right.
And
Right.
Dylan, can you verify that for me?
Yeah, so condition number 8, basically the guidelines call for the front facade to maintain that cabin appearance basically, and they have that existing siding on the front facade right now. So that condition number 8 is basically stating that they would either have to refurbish it or replace it with something compatible with the existing log structure. And as I understand it, I did hear from the applicants that they are willing to do that. I'm not sure which, but.
So that-
Okay, yeah,
Number 8 includes that then. I was confused. on
it
that.
is.
Okay,
It is. I just looked at it and it's inclusive of that.
okay.
So Ms. Keist and Mr. Abraham did say they have a willingness to do that. I am in agreement. As far as the metal door, it's just an application. You know, if you use a metal door, you can screw whatever you want to screw to it. I think probably some of their motivation with that is security, and also they may want to keep their trash cans in there. So there may be some sort of bear wise going on there. You know, it's definitely an issue in this neighborhood.
Yeah, we have bears too, so we know.
Yeah, everybody's got a bear
Yeah,
around
we have
here.
our
Yeah.
big boy.
Yeah. I know this is very, as far as I can see, this is a very comprehensive request. Dylan, good work from staff and your recommendations. I would also recommend the double French doors and possibly dividers in the cella story windows that are above for appearance and privacy. That would give it, again, the look of the old cabin look, and make it more appeasing from the road. I have looked at this building a couple times since the application, or I heard about it was by letter. And I would really like to see this go through because this building's got some real issues, that their roof is dangerous. There's no other way to say it. Is very, very poor condition. And it is at a tipping point where they hopefully they can finance this and get at it pretty quickly, because it could cause a lot of problems in the very near future. It's one of the worst roofs I've seen in a long time. So
The metal roof will go away then, the metal.
Yeah.
part.
yeah, they're going to use once they introduce tear off the existing elevations and put on the new gables. They will be using composite materials on all of the roof surfaces. Am I correct in saying that, Dylan?
Yeah, so they're proposing basically a whole new gable structure, as well as the roofing material proposed is a dark brown architectural shingle. It looks like the applicant has their hand raised.
Please bring them over.
Thanks, Doug. I wanted to just go back to your point of the roof being dangerous. We did another patch last week. We had a leak after, I believe, 2 weeks ago. There was a heavy, short rainstorm. So I did just want to make that point. We are trying to patch it without doing anything intrusive yet. And there's another leak at the chimney. So we are trying to get this roof off. So that was all I needed to say to Doug's point.
Did you go up there and patch it yourself?
No.
No?
We have a contractor. He's on standby. We have the funding ready. So as soon as we can go to Pikes Peak and get the building permit, we'll go and take care of it, hopefully soon.
Well, he's a pretty gutsy guy. I don't think I'd get up on that roof.
Yeah, me neither. Yeah, the inside ceiling is bowing as well. So.
Oh yeah, it's bad. That's a bad one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
About to collapse.
Bang.
Dylan, it said that there was a couple things that were going to be administratively approved. What were those two? One was the kind of stone clad they're going to use.
Let's see.
Well, I think, Joy, it says that in line item, it states that the chimney extension be done in kind materials. The one thing that we were looking at administrative approval for was for the trim elements.
Right.
And I think we can go ahead and address that right now and say, as a standard off-the-shelf trim that's used in these old cabins, and including in yours, is just good old 1x4 pine or some other type of composite material that resembles that.
Is that what you needed, Dylan, for that?
Yeah, and if you want to, in the motion, maybe amend that condition to state that, that would keep it from being an administrative approval.
Okay, so it would be.
Doug, are you referring to the gable to be the 1x4 siding? Is that what?
No,
you were
we're actually just talking about trim woods around windows, fascia
okay.
boards, things of that nature.
Okay.
Most windows, doorways are 1x4, either common pine or composite type material to replicate that. And then most fascia boards on gable ends are usually 1x6. That's just pretty much everything in the neighborhood is like that. So we're looking at those are your trim elements. And then the commission has also recommended the French style doors. And I'm throwing in probably, I'd like to see you guys put dividers on those celestory windows it just would be a compliment to the architectural style of the building. So have we made some notes of that?
Is that something you want to include in the motion?
Yeah, I would like to see that included in the motion, whoever picks that off. And I'd also like to state too, I think this is really good, not only for the preservation of the building, but as you know, there's a building to the south that was built within the last 10 years that sort of made this poor little guy look disproportionate. And then Miss Wright, Commissioner Wright, isn't your mother's old house just immediately to the north of this property? Yep. So, the raised gable, I think, would be an enhancement to the overall look of the community. I think it would really help with continuity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No. Are we ready?
Are we ready? We're ready.
Ourselves.
pediatrician recommended brand. Helps keep baby skin.
That's not good. Why that came up? Sorry. I'm trying to deal with my little screen, okay? Sorry about. Okay, there's a lot of additions. Didn't we want to add about the French doors?
That's in the,
It's in there, yeah.
yeah,
That's
it's
in there.
we just have to
I'm reading
choose it.
through it, I didn't see it. Okay, I have a sinus infection, okay? Let's cut Tamala some slack here.
We will. So, so it looks, Doug, it looks like with those two additions that we are going to approve it with a vote or not approve it based on all the criteria then.
I think we're ready for a motion. Are the rest of the commissioners satisfied with our dialogue and
Yes.
applicants? Everybody good?
Sorry, Doug, I just had a question. Are
Sure.
you, is the commission looking to add additional conditions? It sounded like you were. I just wanted to make sure that you were also going to make a motion for those to be added as conditions.
So yeah, Katie, when we put forth the motion on before the commission for it to be seconded and then voted on, what we just discussed will be part of that motion. Pretty much we're just reverberating what
Okay.
staff recommendations are and clarifying them a little bit.
Okay.
Staff was very thorough in their assessment of this MCAC. And it seems like the applicants are happy and the rest of the commissioners are happy. And I think it's time to move forward. Does that
Okay,
answer
just
your
making
question?
sure. Yep, thank
Certainly.
you.
Okay, you bet. Dylan, go ahead and say goodbye to the Ms. Keist and Mr. Abraham. Guys, have a good night. And we'll go ahead and find a commissioner that gets to make this motion.
Doug, can you just clarify again what the two additional conditions are?
Okay, the two additional conditions is number 6, the proposed new entryway on the front facade of the additional visible from Shelton Road shall be a French style door or style approved by the commission. I think we've clarified that a French style door.
There it
And
is.
I am adding to that the cell-story windows above should also be divided windows.
Mhm.
And then we have the clarification of the trim woods. And that is 7. Yes. Trim materials, dimensions shall be submitted to the planning department. We went ahead and clarified that also, that 1x4 common pine or composite materials of like, they can use like a hardy board that has a texture to it, a grained texture to it, if they choose. So 1x4 trim for doors and windows and 1x6 for gable ends. And we have green lighted the replacement of windows in kind. If they are going to replace windows, then they need to be of wood sash windows or wood clad windows with and or single or double hung and or dividers if they are in kind.
You missed that in number 3.
That is number 3.
Seems
we're
like
gonna-
that one's
yeah.
pretty well.
And then
clear.
on number 6, where it says the replacement of the door, that we're wanting the French doors, I think we would cross out then. Or
what
of a
I'm saying.
style approved by the commission, it would just be, shall be a French style door, period.
Yeah, agreed.
So you would cross out or a style approved.
Hmm.
And
So I would move for approval of MCAC 2201 with staff recommendations as listed in the staff report with the following additions. In condition number 6, we will terminate that sentence at the end indicating that the door shall be a French style door and add the condition that the clerestory windows above that door will have, what was the term?
Dividers.
Dividers, right. On condition number 7, rather than having the trim materials and dimensions submitted to the planning department, we will simply provide that the trim materials shall be 1x4 and 1x6. And the materials, Doug,
They can either be common pine or composites materials that mimic our in kind of grained wood.
so as Doug said. And let's see, were there findings, or I guess the findings are that it promotes private rehabilitation and ownership of historic structures.
Mhm.
I would make that motion.
I
Very
second,
good.
Go ahead, Susan.
I'd second.
We have a second. All in favor? Aye.
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 Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. So item number 4, MCAC 2202 for 194 Shelton Road has passed unanimously, or excuse me, 2201, 194 Shelton Road has passed unanimously. It is 20 minutes after 7. We have 2 more items on the agenda. Would you want to go ahead and push through, or would you like to take a 5-minute break?
Push through.
Push
Okay, let's
through.
push
We're
through.
tough.
We're tough.
Okay,
We've gone to 9 o'clock before.
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
we are coming up on item number 4, MCAC 2202, material change of appearance. Certification for a new construction located at 2 Keithley Place. And I believe the Hannah Wobie of TDG Architecture is the applicant on behalf of Lawrence and Helen Galloway owners. At this time, I will go ahead and disclose again what this particular property and its relationship to me is. And I have no financial gain or loss with this building being built or being proposed in its current location. I have had no real ex parte communication with the owners of this property, and I did not see any of the architectural renderings for this proposed project until I received the packet from the Historic Preservation Commission. So I am going to be fair with these individuals. I will tell you personally, do I want somebody building a house right in front of mine? Of course I don't, but that is besides the point. They paid good money for this property. They have a right to develop this land. And I would rather have friends as neighbors than somebody I've been contentious with. So that's my platform.
And I live to the south and down below it. And let's get going.
All right, so this is MCAC 2202, which proposes new construction at 2 Keithley Place. The nature of the request, the application proposes a 2-level single-family house with approximately 3,000 plus square feet of living area. That's not including the garage area, and features a main level as well as a smaller lower level below. It's sited approximately 25 or more feet from Keithley Place and Keithley Road. It's a little farther from Keithley Road. The application also proposes an attached 2-car garage with separate entrances and a driveway off of Keithley Place. Small covered street facing open porch with 8 to 12-inch heavy timber round porch posts. The north side of the main level extends out beyond the footprint of the lower level to the north, and that is visible from Keithley Road, and is supported by 12 to 14-inch heavy timber round posts. The application proposes 12-inch peeled round half log siding on primary walls on the sides most visible from Keithley Place and Keithley Road. That the property, the proposed construction itself is visible from the south, west, and north elevations. The east elevation is not visible from the roadways. It turns into a private drive at the end of Keithley Place there. The application proposes 8-inch vertical barnwood siding on secondary walls, the garage and entry area, the entire east elevation facade. That's the least visible. The west and north elevations of the main level extension jutting out to the north and gable ends. The application proposes simple 4-light and 6-light divided light fiberglass casement windows in matte black. And those are the most prevalent windows on the building, appearing on 3 out of the 4 elevations, with the exception of the east elevation, and on both levels of the proposed home. Several small single light casement windows are also proposed on most elevations, but always appear secondary to the larger multi-light windows. I actually heard from the applicant that there actually aren't any slider windows proposed, so that was a mistake on my part in reading the elevations. Where I have noted slider windows, those are actually casement windows, fiberglass to match the other windows. Let's see, there is one 1/1 window that is proposed adjacent to the basement patio door that's under the deck on the main level. That's visible on the north elevation. The application proposes dark green architectural style composition shingles on fairly moderately pitched roofs. The roof pitches are between 312 and 412 on the main roofs, and just above the little entryway proposes a small 612 pitched roof as sort of a porch. The main ridge runs parallel to Keithley Place with an elevated ridge section and a clear story bump up on the western half above the kitchen area to allow for window space above the cabinetry and stove to allow natural light to enter the area from the north and the south. The secondary ridge running perpendicular to the main ridge and originating off the eastern half of that main ridge extends to the north to accommodate the back end of the garage and some additional living space. And a small slope triangular roof that sort of connects the two roof pitches, and that accommodates the stairway and like a small space for a library, another small space on the other level. The stone proposed is a cultured stone wall or cladding. I'm not sure whether it's a cladding or whether it's actual stone construction. And that's proposed along the lower perimeter of the walls and base of the building, also on the chimney, and utilized in the small extension to the foundation extending off of the front facade, which helps support half of the open porch roof and entryway before dropping down to the lower level. The application also proposes a 278 square foot uncovered deck with a patio area below. The deck railings proposed consist of black wire rails with wood accents and posts. It's not entirely clear whether the posts proposed are round or square. The 2 wooden overhead carriage style doors to separately accommodate a vehicle each. The guidelines do call for separate garage doors. The application also requests solid wood entry door with 2 vertical single light window panels adjacent to each side of the doorway. and rear sliding glass door accessing the back deck on the main level. The patio area door appears to be a French style glass door opening to the interior to allow access to the patio area below the deck on the basement level. The window trim consists of wood, however, size and dimensions will need to be confirmed by the applicant. The application also proposes flush mounted low reflectivity photovoltaic solar panels on the south facing roof slopes. And that's to maximize the capability and use of the solar panels and to orient them towards the sun to best benefit from the solar energy available and to produce the maximum electricity for the home under our conditions. The exterior lighting features proposed are a front entry pendant light, full cutoff exterior wall sconces adjacent to the garage and on the back deck are proposed. The application indicates all exterior lighting will be downcast as required by the guidelines. The site plan here, it shows you the sort of triangular configuration of the lot here, as well as the 25-foot setback from the front on the side and a bit more than that distance here facing Keithley Road. And it also shows the alignment of the house with Keithley Place, which is consistent with the surrounding homes, 3 Keithley Place and 19 Keithley Road, I believe it is. This is the front elevation that shows the cultured stone cladding on the chimney, as well as the base along the lower perimeter, with the peeled half log siding being the most prevalent feature on that front facade. The clear story bump up here does show that barnwood, vertical barnwood siding, which is also used in the gable end for the front entry and on the area surrounding the front entry and the garage area. You also see the divided light windows that are prevalent in this design, and some small casement windows, both in the clear story bump up and down on this lower level here. The overhead garage doors do appear to be a carriage style garage door. That'll have to be confirmed by the applicant when they come up to speak. So this is the west elevation, which is visible from Keithley Road. You can see the stone material on the lower level continued, and the log siding on this facade as well. On the north end extension here that extends out over the footprint of the lower level, they have proposed that 8-inch vertical barnwood style siding. I'm gonna go to this one. The north elevation, which is also visible from Keithley Road, it's sort of a different view from what you see on the west elevation, just at a slightly different angle. So you can see the log siding there continues along most of the facade of that side. They do propose on that extension on the north end there. You can see that they are proposing the vertical barnwood as the siding material. That extension is supported by the 12 to 14-inch heavy timber posts. And on this elevation, you can see the proposed sliding glass door, it appears, and the French doors on the lower patio area. Let's see. On the east elevation, which is the least visible side, they are proposing the vertical barnwood siding, basically on the entirety of that elevation, as well as this is the only elevation that doesn't have any of the divided light windows, but they do have casement windows proposed for all of them, which is typical in the district. And this is a rendering of the appearance from Keithley Place. This is the front facade and what that appears like from the road, as well as from the north elevation, which shows that vertical barnwood siding, as well as the proposed deck and patio area below. It was discovered during part of this process. I believe it was one of the neighbors, in speaking to the applicants, notified us of a fire turnaround area that was in existence on the property. I had reached out to the fire department asking about this fire turnaround area. They did say it needed to be maintained as a fire turnaround, and they would need to have signage posted that basically stated no parking because it was a fire turnaround. So in measuring the fire turnaround, which was shown on a previous MCAC application for this property, I was able to obtain the measurements and apply them to the current site plan. And it does not appear there is any issue or encroachment of the proposed construction or driveway into that fire turnaround area.
Dylan, I'd like to just real quick, remind the commissioners and those who are in attendance that the drawing on the left-hand side was an old proposed new construction by Elizabeth Crawford, and the footprint that you see on the right-hand side is the current proposed plan.
Correct.
Thank you for that clarification.
You're welcome.
Regarding the drainage and erosion associated with this property, staff notes that downstream neighbors who have experienced damage from drainage and erosion occurring within the subdivision have expressed some concerns about the potential for additional damage resulting from the development of this site. However, these sorts of impacts are not within the purview of the Historic Preservation Commission, but this is something that the applicant and property owners need to be aware of and be prepared to address, potentially with neighbors and through the building permit process. The applicants are aware of some of the concerns, and they have been informed of the potential issues and the need to potentially respond to any questions tonight. Obtaining a building permit for new construction requires compliance with the city's hazard mitigation standards, which includes floodplain review, which does not impact this property, a wildfire mitigation assessment performed by the fire department, and a geologic hazards report. And regarding the geologic hazards report, at minimum, a tier 1 report is required. And if this report mentions any concerns, a tier 2 or tier 3 report would be required for review prior to permitting. And any recommendations made in that report would need to be incorporated into the plans as part of the proposed development. There's also a homeowners association for this subdivision, which is responsible for the maintenance of the private roadways in the subdivision. Notation in the property file indicates that the subdivision was once under the ownership of a single owner who had installed many of the drainage features within the subdivision. And there was a ditch which became filled in with sediment and debris sometime after the original property was subdivided and the lots sold off to private owners. The HOA did have an engineer come out to the area to perform an assessment and make recommendations regarding maintenance of the area's drainage. Staff, until this afternoon, I did receive a copy of that report, but I have not had time to review it. But at the time of writing this presentation, the report and recommendations from the assessment were not known to staff, or whether the recommendations had been acted upon or completed by the HOA. Staff has unofficially heard from some residents in the subdivision that the results were unsatisfactory in terms of the recommendations or the implementation of them, but does not have any documentation to support this other than hearsay at this time. Staff's recommendations regarding this new construction. Staff recommends approval of the proposal for the home at 2 Keithley Place based on the application information provided with the staff report, and with the finding, the request is consistent with the purpose of the historic preservation regulations to promote compatible architectural design of infill structures, and with the following conditions. 1, 12-inch peeled round log half siding shall be used on all exterior elevations on all main wall areas, excluding the gable ends, front porch entryway area, and garage area, which are visible from Keithley Place and Keithley Road. And that's the south, north, and west elevations. So that does include that condition is also referring to that north end extension that is proposed to be clad in that 8-inch vertical barnwood siding. It's staff preference that it being so visible from Keithley Road, that it also maintain that log siding and appearance. 2, the 8-inch vertical barnwood siding shall only be used on the gable ends, east elevation, front porch entryway area, and garage area. 3, all divided light windows shall contain exterior grids. The slider windows, as I've been informed by the applicant, are actually casement windows. So if the commission is okay with removing that piece in their motion, staff would be amenable to that. Number 4, the rear deck shall be supported by round heavy timber posts consistent with the posts utilized on the front porch and main level extension on the north. The deck railing shall consist of black wire rails with wood accents and round timber posts, or of a material approved by the commission if they do not find the proposed materials for the deck railing acceptable in the district. 5, trim specifications shall be submitted for administrative approval prior to purchase or installation. Again, that condition can be amended by the commission to state what the preferred material and dimensions are. 6, the driveway shall be paved with either asphalt, colored concrete, or concrete pavers per planning department approval. 7, any concrete or pavers used for walkways, stairs, or steps shall be colored per the city's approved mix or is approved by the planning department. 8, stone specifications and a sample shall be submitted for administrative approval prior to purchase or installation. If the applicants can provide a little more information to you guys and you want to amend that condition to specifically state that, that would be amenable. And 9, specifications on the design and light levels for the exterior lighting fixtures shall be provided for administrative review and approval prior to the purchase or installation. And that concludes the staff report. If anyone has any questions, I'm available to answer.
Thank you, Dylan. Commissioners, do you have any questions for Dylan?
Well, I'm glad. I assume on that north side, because I automatically we're going, what about the barn siding and why aren't we continuing that over? So Dylan, you've already addressed that in the conditions. on that north side that juts out.
Yeah, and
That's good.
so the barn style, that vertical barn style siding is not something that's real typical as far as I'm aware in the log cabin district. So if the commission doesn't feel that that's acceptable, staff does recommend like a vertical board and batten siding rather than the barn wood. But that's up to the commission.
And Dylan, the wire on the deck or the black wire, that's not typically throughout the log cabin district, right?
It is not.
Okay, thank you.
And in the staff report, if the commission is not in favor of that wire siding, a couple of the adjacent houses in the area, they have basically a wooden deck that has sort of a vertical alignment in between posts using like 2x2 wood slats, basically.
Thank you.
So Dylan, I do have a question. Why staff did not address the sliding glass doors that are visible from the road, that they should be French doors?
Well, I agree with you. And that was just simply overlooked in my review with everything else. But, you know, again, a French style door would be preferable and more in line with the guidelines.
So that's something that we could add to a condition then.
Correct.
Okay. I don't have any more questions for Dylan at this time.
We ever had, hold on, let me go up. The flush mount PV panels. Have we had that before? I know we've had like some solar, some solar, but not, this is a lot. I mean, I definitely
Sure.
am.
They're actually a lower profile type, but you know, I mean, I mean, solar collectors on a roof are going to be pronounced either way. They're going to stick out either way. But
And they are becoming more and more prevalent all over the city. And the thing with solar panels is they have to be aligned facing a certain direction, basically, in order
The
to make
sun thing, I know. Yeah.
right.
And isn't there some regulations allowing that as we try to get off carbon?
Yeah, and basically what the historic design guidelines say is to minimize the visual impact. And we've kind of interpreted that as staff to, you know, to mean as long as they're flush mounted and they're sort of either screening the equipment on the side of the house somewhere that's not visible, that's been acceptable and approvable in the districts.
So do we need to add that as, if we decide, need to add that to a condition that it's hidden from view, the apparatus part?
You certainly can.
Okay. Okay, Doug.
yeah, I want to make sure any other commissioners have made comments, if they have any points. So yeah, I do have a couple of questions, Dylan, obviously. One is yeah, why the 8-inch vertical barnwood siding? If anything has been traditionally used in the cabin district, it's been board and bead, like we just saw in our last MCAC. I do have questions of why they're just not using 12-inch peeled round all the way around the building. Make it look more consistent. It's a very contemporary design. I get it. You know, and they're also, again, they have stated they're using windows that are of a fiberglass composite in a black look that again, is inconsistent with the buildings in the area, particularly those that have had to use wood or wood clad windows, trim specifications. Again, we went through that in our last MCAC, 1x4 for window and door, 1x6 or 1x6 on doorways. One of my concerns too is the driveway being asked to be paved with asphalt or colored concrete or concrete pavers. So that is somewhat inconsistent in this area. Everything around here is gravel or dirt or pavers. It adds to, it makes for more impervious surfaces.
Yep.
And you have worse runoff with an
Yep.
impervious surface.
So that,
But it also contradicts what they call the sense of place aspect, and that's a federal guideline, because everything around here is dirt or rock. And then also the cultured stone aspect of it. All the other new builds in this area have been asked to either do stone specific or some sort of river stone or natural stone look, not the square blocky type. So these are things I've just kind of brought up. We can review them a little bit later. These are things that I would bring up for any sort of new build in the historic district here. But I think that we should probably go ahead and hear from the applicant at this time. Commissioners, do you agree?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Okay, let's go ahead and hear from the applicant. This is a fairly extensive MCAC new build, a lot of questions, a lot of things to talk about. So Dylan, go ahead and bring over the applicant. And I believe the representative is Hannah Wobe with TDG Architecture. Am I correct?
Hello.
Hi.
Cut out. Sorry if I missed anything you said at the end.
And I hope that I have pronounced your name right.
Wabi.
Wabi. Okay. It's not my last name to get wrong for the evening.
That's okay.
Thank you, Hannah.
And I'm Mark Trummel, architect.
Greetings. How are you this evening?
Very good.
Good. Well, you've heard some of the concerns from the commissioners thus far. And is there anything else you would like to add as far as some of the staff recommendations or concerns that have been raised so far with your application?
I think maybe just to clarify our intent behind showing the vertical barnwood siding on the extension piece on the north was our feeling was that because it was a projected element that in itself wasn't a very log cabin historic feature. And so by carrying the barnwood siding, we meant it to look more like an addition to a historic existing log cabin. We felt that by bringing the logs around the extended piece, it might ruin the illusion. We're also looking at the cultured stone veneer having a more organic look, not the repeated rectangular stone. I certainly know what you're referring to, and we'd like to avoid that as well. And the solar panels, energy efficiency is important to the clients, Larry and Helene. And so we thought by proposing flush mount, we could incorporate them into the roof as best we could, as well as low reflectivity to prevent any glare for neighbors. The clients are aware and concerned. They don't want to cause any problems with the neighborhood, and
and I think if we could talk to the owners about the idea of how a board and batten would look. The intent is that it be a light siding essentially, and again, just because it would seem like as we were up there too that additions were prevalent on the old log building. So we were trying to make sure that it felt like the log cabin was there originally, and then you were adding to it. And so, the intent is to try to make it look as part of its place as possible. And by the way, the log and the siding were all intended to be also cement based, so that we aren't adding to any of the fire hazards in that area. So there's a marvelous company called Everlog that actually constructs their logs out of forms that are from natural logs. So unless you go up to it and actually knock on it, you won't even know that it's not real wood. It has the chinking and everything possible. But the idea is because we've done enough work in the urban fire interface area that the house itself, we're trying to make as fire resistant as possible. And so even the board and batten would be, the hardy board type of siding. The fiberglass windows will actually mimic very closely to a very narrow style wood window. We've used them in historic residences before, both a metal clad and a fiberglass clad window. If color is the issue, then we can work through that one too, because I think the intent was to try to keep that as original as possible too, that intent of size and style of most of the windows there in all the buildings. And I think we could also talk to the owner too about the sliding glass door, because even if anybody's seen, we can actually do sliding glass doors that actually appear to be like the French doors. They just slide rather than have the hinged operator. So there are ways that we can, I believe, answer most of your concerns.
And to clarify, our intent for having a sliding glass door on the main level is because of really a pretty shallow deck and a dining room right off of it, and trying to avoid having a swing that takes up space on either side.
Yeah.
But certainly adjusting the sliding doors to better reflect the look of the French doors below would be a change we'd happily make.
As was brought up earlier, we fit the house on a tight site. And part of it was that if we could avoid using swing doors where it's a little tight, it would be okay. But we can work through that.
Normally, when we have in-person meetings, we're able to see materials.
Yes.
This log siding material you're talking about, I'm unfamiliar with. Is there a way we can see that? We're really sensitive to siding right now because we have a little problem with an issue up on Shelton.
Yeah,
So.
they have a great site called Everlog. I actually had it pulled up here, but it's a Montana company that was started several decades ago, actually, because of the fires they were having in Montana, and to be able to be doing genuine log, or at least log like cabins that looked like logs was their intent. So they've been around for a while. We actually worked with the owner of that, or at least one of the salespeople for that one, actually, to do a house in the mountains here. So, but I think that was one of the intents, was that we were able to give you the log look without contributing to any more firewood in that area.
And the black wire on the deck, is that something that isn't very typical in the historic district?
Right.
Yeah, the intent of that was, of course, to minimize the obstruction of the views from the deck while you're seated. We were concerned that an all wood railing would kind of obstruct your view, but we could, work with the owner to find an alternative solution.
Yeah.
I can share an image of that Everlog siding. I have it pulled up if that would be.
Thank you, Dawn.
I'm on it.
Yeah, me too.
Good.
You're right. You can't tell the difference.
It's pretty spectacular.
Yeah.
And it allows more insulation also. So between the kind of genuine chinking and the concrete. The chinking actually works better because there's no logs away from the chinking, if you know what I mean, because they're all cementitious materials.
So it could go on the front where you want to do those other boards, right? It could go on there.
Precisely.
We like a lot of logs. Oh.
Oh, and that's why they're heavy enough that we were trying to, the pieces that were in a sense overhanging or supported with nothing underneath them, we were trying to keep that as that light board and batten siding, just because a heavy log home that's supported on these logs overhanging are not typically what we see. So that was why that, we were trying to lighten that whole siding up, because additions to these buildings have been done, and in the tradition of miners, they were actually very light wood construction.
And the garage doors are going to be carriage type doors?
Yes, and the intent to carry the barnwood siding to that facade is really just to kind of have those doors blend in to that facade and not a prominent feature.
The landscape stairs on that would be the east side, coming down. I know my directions. It appears it would be concrete coming down. I mean, that wouldn't be seen necessarily. It'll be a water chute, but unless they, staggered or something. But are those proposed to be cement?
It's actually a landscape element. So we were thinking cement as probably the landings, but we haven't yet worked with the owner enough to it could be logs with gravel. It could be also paper. So it has a little more to do with how the landscaping starts to come around. Now, the other part of that, though it's kind of a segue, and I don't mean to interrupt too much in that, is also the idea of that drainage and how we start to take a look at, because the contractor is both a residential and commercial contractor who's worked in hillside zones quite a bit of his life. We're quite aware of some of the stabilization that during construction and after construction that the site has to maintain in order not to have any more gravel really run into the road or into the drainage areas that were right below the house. And I think that's going to be a consideration that we wanted to make sure you understood, that not only do we understand, but we understand its importance.
And that goes before, that's not in our purview. That goes.
Correct. I know. But I just wanted to let you know that it has a lot to do with how we work around the house. That when you're talking about it actually being there because of the runoff on that side, the interesting part is that stairway can actually give us a help with some of that drainage during those high runoff times.
And where are you with using pavers rather than cement?
Oh, I had the same thing that Doug was talking about, that we prefer to use something pervious.
Okay.
So the code requires, the reason the condition basically states asphalt, concrete, or pavers is because that's a code requirement in all zones. And that's why it's stated that way. So
Okay.
pavers are acceptable.
Okay, great. I have pavers.
What about the railings? The deck railings? Was I out?
Oh, we'll take a look at that with the owners too, because one of the things in that area too would be if powder coated like a steel would also be a possibility, a little thinner, but between wood posts.
Like wood, I know. I get it. I mean, I understand the thought behind this is so the visibility isn't obstructed. I understand that, but most of the other houses in that area have more log style, more rustic look than a metal.
Agreed.
I don't know.
And it's really more of a maintenance and also.
Yeah,
follow-up.
yeah, it's true. That's true.
So, but we also know that there are certain synthetic woods that also are used, because we propose that maybe for the decking itself, that it still look like wood, but it may have a fire resistance that'd be a little different.
Oh yeah, you're teaching us a lot. I love this other stuff. So. Okay.
We've been working through, and I know Manitou doesn't have some of the same fire rules, but as you know, we have been involved in reconstructing homes that have actually burned. So, because of wildfire. And so we're very conscious of the fact that when we build, we're in those wooded areas, that every piece of how we build something has to be considered a little more strongly toward how its fire resistance and its practicality can be used. You want your house to be incredibly durable. We've got some clients who really love this area, want to protect it also, and I think that's why as we start to see things and as you have recommendations, we want to make sure we find that right fit.
How does your owner feel about roosters?
I don't know. I never
A few, might I ask. Doug, have any questions?
Yeah, I do. So first and foremost, we're just sort of gliding by the 8-inch barnwood siding. It's totally inconsistent with any structures that are in the immediate area. We have approved board and bead structures that are new and or remodels. But I never remember seeing the usage of 8-inch barnwood siding like that, except for on some of the old garages in the area. Also, it is completely inconsistent, and this is the first time I've heard anything about concrete log siding. Not to be too much of a stickler, but you are talking about building in the heart of the historic district. Every house that's been constructed in the Keithley subdivision has been of either real log or log siding. 2 of the 3 houses that were built in the area are of full log, real log construction. And the last house that was approved, that was to be the Presser residence, it was insisted that they used full half-round logs on their building. We don't have any current fire codes that require any sort of retardant siding of this nature. And again, this is the first I've heard of it. It wasn't part of the dialogue or part of what was stated. It's definitely way outside of the guidelines, any guidelines that were set down for the Keithley sub-district, any of the houses that have been constructed in this area. And it was the crux of the issue of an administratively approved change in siding recently to a house where they went from what was supposed to be half-round log siding to a manufactured quote unquote home style material. And the rest of the neighborhood was very displeased with that. And I have to, we need to listen to that also, because it's not just about how we feel as a commission, but it's about the neighbors and those who live around them, what they feel. I get the contemporary style of the building. I'm all about photovoltaics. I have no problem with that. I have no problem with the roof materials. I even understand the railing aspect for views. I mean, those are magnificent views and comparable views. I know I've enjoyed them all my life. But there's a bigger mission here when it comes to the siding aspect of this.
We get a physical sample, and we could have it down with Dylan that we could.
Yeah, I've never seen this material before. I'm not familiar with it. It doesn't mean that it's not a good material. But how that may look from a photograph on the computer screen to its real application in real life can be night and day, and that's a big decision. I don't know how comparable of a value that may be. You may end up spending more on your siding than you would just by going up to Casey Lumber or some other outlet and getting real log siding. I mean, this is, again, I mean, anybody that would be in my shoes would be bringing this up. This is not a light matter. Again, if this was more of an ancillary structure, something that was way outside of the historic district or way on the fringe of it, you know. But this is like literally right across the street from two buildings that were required to have full log construction, and a third building. The only three new builds that are in this part of the subdivision have all been required to use real wood half log siding. So I
It's
think
so,
you're gonna have to justify that to me.
you're gonna see this sucker from Crystal Park Road. I mean, the high school, you're gonna look right at it. And if it really looks different, I mean, we're gonna get clobbered again.
Would the commission entertain that we would have real 12-inch log siding with an alternate, if it was approved for a cement-based log siding, as an alternate, not as the first choice, so to speak? Would that be, and I'm thinking even the barnwood siding that we would again go with, could we recommend that we would go with a board and batten wood siding look to replace the barn siding, and then if there was an alternate to that for the barn siding, then we would entertain it only as a variance.
Well, I think, you know, those are things that we discuss, you know, we hear what you're saying. What we would want to discuss as a commission, what we want to do and move forward with it.
Oh, I appreciate that. That's why I asked if there'd be worth entertaining that.
Yeah, it's good that you brought up something that could.
I also think right now at this point, we need to listen to those who are in attendance, if they have any public comment, gather that information that would help us make more clear decisions on what we can do to help you with your vision. Because again, I mean, I understand the challenges of this lot probably pretty much better than anybody. I know what you're going to get into when you start digging into the ground. It's just, you're just not going to start digging out gravel. You guys are going to have some real challenges there when it comes to the engineering of your foundation and so on and so forth. And I may even advise you to reconsider, you know, having the master bedroom as a standalone, because I think you're going to have some shifting issues.
But Doug, that's not something
It's pretty bold.
that's not in
But
our purview.
I
Doug.
know,
We
but
shouldn't be just
let's
discussing
go
it,
ahead and
because
get
that's not what
into,
our purview is.
yeah, let's go ahead and get into some of our attendees. I think that would probably be helpful at this point, and see what they have to say.
You need to open the public meeting.
Okay, so commissioners, are you ready for me to open the public comment section of the MCAC?
Mhm.
Okay, let's go ahead and do that. We're going to go ahead and open now for public comment on MCAC 2202. New build at 2 Keithley Place. Dylan, do we have any hands?
Yes, Eric Wright has raised his hand, and I'll bring him over with your permission.
Please.
Pray for me.
Okay, Mr. Wright, you're muted, and when you come on, if you could give us your full name and your address.
There we go. Let me get my video up back again. There we go. Evening, Eric Wright. I live at 227 Plainview Place. Miss Vera, let you know Tamla Wright is my wife. We live directly north and downhill of this proposed site. First of all, before we get into some of the notes and things I have made that I would like to address, first of all, thank you, Doug, for touching base on the construction of the log, what is allowed in this area, what's not allowed in this area, and what all the other buildings in this area are being required to be made of. So that way we don't have something completely different coming into this area. This particular building site has become a difficult situation for where we live. Down here at the bottom of the hill, we are directly north of this proposed site. Anything and everything that occurs up there on this lot potentially affects us and other homes that are down here in this area, be it views, be it design, be it roof line, and specifically the water problem runoff that we are currently having and have had due to Keithley Road not being engineered to handle a huge amount of water, huge amount of traffic, or a massive building being put near this road. We've had this problem before when Miss Elizabeth Crawford was wanting to build on this lot. She was actually asked, and if I am correct, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that she was going to have to handle a stormwater runoff study because of the effects of having a non-porous surfaces that were so large, not allowing water to go down into the soils, percolate through due to the creeping soils and the slope that we have in the area that points to the north that directs that water down this direction onto city property that then now comes down and floods us down below. So we're also being down here are now going to have to look uphill to the south. And this is the first time I've seen any drawings or pictures of this proposed building on how massive that is going to be from down here. The neighbors that are down in this area looking to the south up at this new construction. The idea of having, like I said, the railings, I understand their view, great, but having something fit the other cabins in that area, I think take precedence over a personal choice on what they would have built on this house. Anything and everything that happens up here on this building is going to affect us down here. Our house was built by Doug's great-grandfather. It's now almost 76 years old. Any soils that we have up there that are going to start moving, heavy equipment used to build this place causes soils to come down onto my property. And we have had a lot of problem with that, even with other heavy equipment up there over the last few years with the other buildings. So I'm asking about the west side of this house and the size of the roof, how that's, if you guys would take into kind of a thought on how that's going to affect all of us down here. Everything else that I have that are in my notes, I'm going to have to say for planning. That's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you, Eric. Dylan, do we have anybody else in attendance that would like to make comments?
Betty Armstrong has her hand raised.
And again, thank you, Eric. Thank you, Mr. Wright. Go ahead and bring Betty over. And
Apologize for my cat in heat.
somebody's got a cat.
My cat's in heat. I can't have her fixed because she has a heart condition. Okay.
Hey, good evening, Miss Armstrong. You are muted. And when you come on, if you could please state your full name and your address.
Okay, my name is Betty Armstrong. I live at 14 Keithley Road.
Betty?
Hi, I'd definitely be looking right at this house. And I was very impressed with the effort they had put into to have it work in with the land formation. The angle of the house I thought was very good. I agree with the board and batten rather than the barnwood. I don't think the barnwood does anything for it. I agree with some of the things that Doug said about, well, some of the things that Doug said. As far as the railing on the deck goes, there is metal around. They're not all wooden railings. And metal makes a lot more difference really in terms of fire and so forth. Wooden railings and wooden decks and so forth. Any place that has had fire, and we certainly are in a fire prone area. The driveway, I heard what Dylan said about the cement and paved and all that. We don't have any paving up here. So I think that would be a good cause for a runoff. Mostly it's either dirt or gravel, which seems to work okay. So that's pretty much what I wanted to say. Overall, I really like the house.
Okay, well, thank you, Betty. Dylan, do we have anybody else in attendance for public comment?
I don't see any further hands raised.
Okay. Yeah, neither do I. So, all right. Well, at this point, I believe we'll go ahead and close public comment on MCAC 2202 new construction at 2 Keithley Place, and go back to some commissioners. We can dialogue a little bit. Dylan, why don't you go ahead and bring back the applicant, just in case we have some questions with them and they can be listening to some of our comments. We've
They
heard
shouldn't
from,
be on the panel, though. I mean, we should discuss as a panel and they could be in the audience.
Right.
okay, well,
They shouldn't be
okay,
with us when we're doing our discussion.
okay. All right, let's
Have
go ahead.
questions, we can ask them later.
All right, well, let's go ahead and have a panel discussion then. And then Dylan, go ahead and, sorry, folks, we're gonna go ahead and stick you back in the
That's all right.
attendee
You're going
slot.
back now.
I'm still warming up to this, Chair.
I think you're doing fine, Doug.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Joe. I
Doing
appreciate the
fine.
vote of confidence. So we heard from Mr. Wright and Miss Armstrong, two neighbors that have concerns that are valid. I think we'll go, I'm going to go ahead and make the statement of the issue of drainage has been brought up on several occasions. I don't know if it's in our purview or if we
No,
are,
it is
no,
not.
let me finish. If it's a recommendation that we could forward to the planning commission, that they look at this, or just not at all.
No.
Not
at
all.
Okay, well,
Not
then we're
at
going to
all.
go ahead and just leave that discussion
I mean, that
on the
that will
table.
be covered then, but we can't.
Right, right. No,
you
just
can't
I
make any
didn't know if it
statement.
was a recommendation that we could forward or anything of that nature. So
No,
we'll go ahead
denied,
and
you can't.
leave that one alone. Okay. And so we heard from Miss Armstrong about her concern about the siding and the barn board, the 8-inch barn board. Also, you know, there is this sort of fine line of railing and so on and so forth, and how that would work. And also, I mean, again, I'm going to go ahead and applaud the design of this building. The last time this was presented to the Historic Preservation Commission by what was going to be the Crawford/Slotnick residence, it was just huge and intrusive. And they have scaled that back by a third, possibly even 50%. They have you know, the contemporary design of this building definitely conforms to the topography of the lot. I think some of the concerns that have been voiced by applicants and so on and so forth will be addressed even just by its sheer design. I'm glad to see them using photovoltaics. It's definitely on conversation between me and my wife and other houses here in the property and in the area. I see it going up all the time. My main concerns are the log-like siding. Again, that's way out of anything that's been used in the immediate area that has been required to. And I'm looking at what's fair for those who have had to build in this area. I don't want to go 10 years down the road and turn around and say, well, look, we know we can just use hardy board and make it a slat siding building. If there's ever another lot that could be developed in this area. So I would like to hear the commissioner's feelings on that. I'm pretty firm on it. I'm totally in agreement with 12-inch half round real peeled log siding with chinking in between, very traditional look, and board and bead for the rest of the building. So that's my position, and you can agree and vote otherwise.
Well, I would say on the railings, I certainly I don't think the black wire should be there. I'm open to metal of some kind or some kind of composite, but I think the wires are really compatible. I can understand why they don't want to do wooden slats, but I think there's other things that can be done other than just the wires. And that, that's on that. I certainly would like to see not pavement, since pavement isn't something
Okay.
I see very much. And where are you on this, do you think?
Well, I was just rereading some of this. I kind of agree with Doug. I don't think we've ever approved a concrete type siding in the log cabin district. And that does seem to be a kind of a sticking point. And I went back and looked, and it doesn't seem to be disclosed anywhere that I could find. I don't know, Dylan, if you were aware of that or not. So I think that is a concern and would take, I think, a lot of discussion. I'm less concerned about, I think the wire porch railing is probably not appropriate, but I'm sure there's some alternative, and they seem to suggest there was as well. And I think I hear him on the notion of putting logs over that north extension that is just hanging out there might be an issue, and board and batten might be a better approach there. So at the moment, that's kind of my feeling. And I think he made a fairly good argument about there are additions to existing structures that would mimic that appearance. So I don't have as big a problem with that. Those are my thoughts at the moment.
I have a few thoughts, unless Tamala, do you want to go ahead?
No, go ahead, Susan.
Okay, I have to say, I really appreciate the challenge. It must be building a house on this site where the 3 sides of the structure really faces the road, and therefore all 3 sides are subject to our district design guidelines. But I have read the district design guidelines multiple times in the last couple of days, and it is pretty specific that the siding shall be log siding. And it must be predominant. The way I read that, it's got to be the predominant material, not just a decoration or on part of that side. So while I really appreciate what their concept was for the overhang, to me, when you look at the face of that in the design, and anybody who's looking at it from the road, that needs to be log siding all the way across that end. Anything that's not stone needs to be log siding, other than under the gable. That's been our standard. And I agree with Doug. Even the newer homes in that area are consistent with that design. So I'm not sure I can support even the board and batten on that large a part of the building on those 3 sides that are visible. And I'm with you all on the, you know how I feel about wire metal railings. We've had that conversation before. So I'm going to stay consistent with my view that that's not appropriate either. I do appreciate their thought about the sliding doors that mimic French. Again, we would want to make sure that those mullions are three-dimensional, not just in between or something that you see from the road, but it needs to be three-dimensional, as we have said with many other windows on that. But I think that would be perfectly acceptable if they can find a replacement for that and make it more look like a French door. So those are kind of my thoughts.
Okay.
Very good. Thank you, Susan.
I loved the pictures. I think this is a really neat product, but I am so leery after what's happened up on Shelton to just, oh yeah, do whatever. Oh, it looks sort of log. It looks sort of, it's, and leaving it up to Dylan as an administrative approval, that isn't going to fly anymore. I'm still getting hate mail through people about it. Chuck, yeah. So in the railing thing, it's not a deal killer, but I just think it shouldn't look as high tech as it does. And that's the problem. I just hate for a house to look high tech when they bought into a log cabin district. Hello, it should be all log. Is that a surprise? I mean, just and the rustic part of it is gone. I'm all about aspen style log cabin. That's great, but not here, not right here. So I don't know what to do for them, because I don't know if they can go to their owners and go, oh, guess what? You're gonna have to do logs. Do we put that as a condition? Or do they need to come back and show us what plans look like with, I mean, we know what a log looks like, but I mean, is this just too much to just leave up in the air?
Well, I agree with Susan that this is the heart of the log cabin district, just like some other areas are. And I appreciate the fire stuff. We all live in the fire zones. We do here, and I'm sure you all do. But I really have trouble in this space when we require from other owners to do the log or the half log peel thing. I agree with Susan that it needs to be logged where you see it from the road. And if you're looking up at it, it should look like a log cabin.
And I guess some little tiny bit of the flood issue did come in, the stormwater, I should say, with the cement. They were great about that, about doing pavers. Thank goodness on that, because that's going to be a large area.
Yeah.
So I'm done.
So do we?
Okay, and
do we add things to conditions, or?
I'm lost.
Yeah, we might be pretty close to that. And do you have any other concerns or anything to?
Again, no, I was just rereading the staff report again, and it does indicate, and I don't recall this, that the HPC has approved both wooden and metal log siding. Do you recall that?
I've never heard that. I've never heard metal log siding ever.
Do you know where that comes from, Dylan?
I've never heard that.
Yeah, so in reviewing previous staff reports in the district, that has been included in several of the staff reports in that section, mentioning both wood and metal siding has been approved in the past.
Really?
Yeah, and that was that line right there was copy and pasted from a previous staff report.
Yeah. I
metal
mean,
metal siding as in corrugated metal or shape metal or metal. I've never heard of a metal style log. That would definitely be a new one for me.
Well, you hadn't heard of the concrete, apparently.
Neither have I. I am not all knowing, I assure you.
You kind of left it in that.
Yeah, it's all right.
And then let me just read the follow-up sentence. And this sounds a lot like Michelle, but it was determined a number of years ago the appearance of log siding from the street was acceptable to maintain the character of the area. And again, this does sound like something
Yeah, it sounds like,
we would have heard from Michelle. Yeah.
Right,
then it-
right.
But
From-
that begs the question about, and I think you all do make a good point about the north extension is so visible that that probably should appear log.
yeah,
And we know what happened with that. We need to know what exactly, if it's gonna have the appearance. I would like to see what it's gonna be.
and
Well,
then
this-
on the windows, they're gonna be black and narrow, so it's not gonna be like a 1x4, it's going to be, like you described, Doug, it's going to be narrow.
Yeah, again, I mean, that is, it's been a requirement of the houses in this area, in this immediate area. And again, just from the last MCAC we heard for a remodel / addition, excuse me, that they're required to have wood style windows, replace anything that is either going to be replaced or that's part of the new addition. And that's been fair, that has been consistent. I believe that was also required of Pete Couch's house. I think I listened in a little bit of that, but I know that's what he was doing. And I'm looking at continuity. I'm looking at continuity of the application of guidelines in the area, houses that we've just recently heard, and fairness to those who've come before that have had to build in this area. I can appreciate them wanting to do something different. The design, the roof line, the shape of the building is very contemporary, but it also is pretty much the best fit for that lot. It makes wonderful usage of the space, the footprint, the floor plan, so on and so forth. I could, go on all day. Nice little place. They've kept the roof line low out of consideration for the views of the other neighbors, including me. But the log siding thing is, I just don't think that's something that should be a give. I think that I think we've come to a place where we've made some good points. We would definitely like to see the usage of pavers for any sort of walkways or driveways on the exterior of the building, since that's part of our purview and it's part of the requirements and part of the recommendations. I think we should see as much real log half siding is applied to the building as possible. And I'm sorry, I'm not going to use the excuses. You can't find this stuff. I just drove up to Casey Lumber 2 weeks ago. They have stacks of it. It's everywhere. It's readily available. Go ahead.
I just have a question of Ann. When you're reading the criteria again, because I always like to look at that criteria, does it say about wooden windows or wooden clad specifically? Or Dylan, you can answer.
I'd
that.
have to get back to that point. Let's see.
I was gonna say in the guidelines, I couldn't find anything about windows, but
Oh, okay, I didn't
she
think
may
I
be
saw
looking
anything.
at something else that I don't have access to.
Yeah.
Well, it's obviously been a requirement, or it's been a subject in past items. So we have pavers, we have log siding, we have the board and bead, we have windows and railing. So, and those are all things that, again, that have been part of the conversation when the applicant first came before us. Their willingness to work on a railing instead of doing cable, they would do some sort of thin metal or some sort of in kind. I do know that all the other 3 houses that have been recently built up here were all wood, but a metal railing with a composite deck. I mean, that's pretty much standard practice this day and age. So we have that, and we have the pavers outside, and then the log siding. I mean, they would have to bring me a sample and put it in my hands to sell me.
I think,
And I just don't think that it's something I would give on anyways.
Dylan, on the pavers or the asphalt or the cement, is that through the planning commission or is that through us?
That's actually part of the zoning code.
So it's the zoning, so they could pave it if they chose. unless
Yeah.
we had a recommendation.
Yeah, and the way that condition is worded is basically any concrete or pavers used have to be colored basically, and that comes from the design guidelines, the colored concrete part. But the requirement for basically paving a driveway, that's a requirement of the zoning code. And it basically states concrete, asphalt, or pavers.
And it is Joy, just to kind of give you what it would be like, or what the area they're talking about. It's basically just would be almost an apron coming off of their garage to Keithley Road, or to Keithley Place, which is dirt. So it wouldn't be an area much larger than 20 feet wide and maybe 10, 12 feet deep.
Yeah, we have pavers that way, so.
Yeah.
I understand
Yeah.
the pavers.
Yeah, quite frankly, I think if they use pavers, it would spare them some heartache from potential runoff and flooding of their garage. And
Yeah.
getting in the house. So. Anyways, and I'm just going to not even make any comment about foliage or the trees or anything like that. I've just got to let it go. So.
I wish we had guidelines for that,
Well, there's not.
the whole tree thing.
Yeah. Yep.
So are a lot of trees going to be cut down?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's some beautiful pinions in there.
Yeah.
So they can, I mean, they could try to relocate them, but just the way it is, I mean,
Yeah, we have relocated, when we added addition, we relocated a lot of the pinions. And they're actually doing, it's been 15 years, but they're doing really well. We ourselves brought them up and then had them replanted, and they're doing well. So you can save a lot of those pinions are pretty hardy.
they are. These have been there for a long time. A lot of the pinions that are on site actually still have the little planter, stone wall planters that my great grandfather hand built, and they were all planted by him personally. So it's just the way it goes. Got to build a house, right?
So I think I have made notes on edits that I would, to the staff recommendation, that may make us able to move forward on this. But I'm kind of at a loss for what to say about the porch, the deck railing, not the porch, the deck railing. How would we phrase that?
Like maybe give them a choice of the wood or the metal or composite, but not the wire. Doug, is that?
Yeah. There's plenty of good low profile, thin metal railing available out there that can be had in various colors, that are available in various colors. As long, because it's not the width, they can be 1 inch wide. Usually what you see on most porches are inch and 7/8 by inch and 7/8 balusters. The metal you can get a much thinner profile as long as you don't exceed that 4-inch gap, and it's code, then that's acceptable. So, and it does give you a better field of view. I know what they're after. I mean, I appreciate that. So
Would we leave that to staff approval then, since we can't see an example of that tonight?
So
Then I don't know quite how to phrase
and
that.
Dylan,
I'll tell you later.
Well, then,
Sorry,
if we put it in, and then it could be brought before us, the example, since they won't be building their rail like right away.
Right. Well, I think what we could do is, there could be So, and again, this is one thing that I think as a commission, we should look at, is we can approve the MCAC to move ahead, so that way they can start getting drawings and permittings in place with a revisitation of railing, lights, things of that aren't critical to the immediate build. And that's the one thing that I think that I've seen happen before in the past with this commission, possibly planning either, that, you know, you can approve the bulk of a project. People can go in, they can start breaking ground, they can start pouring concrete, start doing other things that don't involve us. And they can, and in the interim, in the next 30 days, or 45 days, put together a package of, say, okay, this is the real log siding we're going to use. Here's the railing we're going to use. These are the windows we're looking at. Here are the pavers we're looking at, because that's all finished element stuff. That's down the road stuff. So I think we can make our recommendations, which may include them bringing back samples of these materials.
We don't normally hodgepodge like that, though.
Well, I know that, but
Hodgepodge.
I understand that. I understand that, but one of the things
Usually
that's
adds
out
up.
there with these, one of the things that's out there is how our commission and other commissions can hold up projects over little things. So I know it's a hodgepodge, but having that recommendation in place when we say we're approving this contingent upon the presentation of these materials. So again, it releases them to start acquiring, permitting, and moving forward with their project.
I would think though, Doug, that we would want to, if we're going to recommend the log siding, that's what we recommend.
Right.
I
Well,
think
that's,
the areas- I
that's
think areas that Dylan had said that might be administrative approval that we would have to decide. I think we could do that now. I you know, to divide it up and stuff, I just don't see, since they're going to have a lot of stuff to do with drainage and the planning commission, everything, I think that I don't like to do that hodgepodge kind of stuff either. I really think it confuses it. If we decide that we want the log cabin, we should make that the logs. We should make that the recommendation. If we want the deck not to be wire, but to be either metal or this, I think we can say it. I don't see us approving the cement logs at all.
Right.
And, bringing those to us, it's just not part of the log cabin. I think that's just my opinion on that. I don't know where everyone else is on it.
I think we're all there, commissioners,
Okay.
when it comes to the log siding.
Yes.
Yes.
We're all there. So let's go ahead and say that we would approve the 12-inch peeled chink log siding. We would approve pavers, our preferred
I think
pavers.
we need to say on the log that we want it on this 3 sides that are visible.
Visible from the road.
Yeah, and the recommendation says that.
Okay.
Well, the recommendation has a lot of other exceptions, and I would say, except for the gable ends, and that's it.
Right.
And the garage doors, everything else needs to be.
So the front porch
Log siding.
entryway area, you want to omit?
I would. I mean, we're not allowing that board and batten most other places except on the gables. Then you would have that horizontal continuous, which we're always trying for, the continuous horizontal look of the logs all the way across the front. other
So
than where there's
Dylan,
stone.
what was your thinking on allowing them to use this 8-inch vertical hardwood siding on the front porch entryway area?
It just seems very secondary visually. So it was either the board and batten or the barnwood if that was approved. It's just not real visible, but you know, that's up to you, to the commission on what way you want to go on that.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I could go either way then. At least from the what we have to look at this point, it doesn't appear to be very visible.
Right.
In reality, I don't know what it will look like.
So maybe we could just go down the conditions in the staff report and figure out
Yeah,
what we want to change here.
so I'm seeing not to change number 1,
Right.
leave it as is.
Yep.
Number 2, we would specify board and batten siding only to be used on the gable ends and east elevation. I mean, basically everything except we'd say board and batten.
Right, instead of vertical barnwood, yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
On number 3, we would just eliminate or delete the second sentence about
Mhm.
sliders.
Mhm.
On number 4, the railing shall consist of wood rails and posts or metal, wood or metal rails and posts.
Right.
Would that
Okay, all right.
fit our need? I guess we leave the trim specifications alone. I'm not sure what those would be.
Well, I think let's go ahead and give them the same trim specifications we did with MCAC 2201. They need to be 1x4, 1x6 casings around doors and windows and gable ends.
So can they be fiberglass? Is fiberglass 1 to 4?
You know, so I mean, and that's somewhere where I've got a lot of give because I've used a lot of these materials. There's composite materials, there's hardy board materials that are fire resistant, that resemble wood, that are grained, basically they are more durable. Those areas have a tendency to take more of a beating, particularly the gable ends when it comes to weather. And so, I mean, if they want to use true wood, they can, but if they want to use a composite material, that would be acceptable as long as it's grained wood-like.
So how would you change number 5?
I
Or
would say
would you?
trim, I would say trim specifications, 1x4 and 1x6 wood or composite type materials to resemble wood. Then 6,
6, yeah, on to 6.
driveway shall be paved with, should we go ahead and recommend pavers on that, folks?
Yep.
Yeah.
Go ahead. and
Well,
pavers?
is that a
Unless the code specifies something different.
No, it specifies one of the above, one of either asphalt, concrete, or pavers.
So can we, if that's in the code, we can't overrule it, can we?
yeah, it's planning department approval.
So
Right.
you're still in compliance by doing that.
By recommending pavers,
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
okay?
okay.
Okay, then 7 would be an omission because that would then there's no any concrete pavers used for walkways, stairs, steps shall be colored per city's approval. Okay, we'll go ahead and leave 7 in. Stone specification samples should be submitted for administrative approval. How would we like to handle that? They already made the comment that they want to use. I would like to see stone specifications of natural materials, natural-like materials, instead of, square interlocking type.
So we could put that in, couldn't we, Dylan?
Yeah, so you could say something like stone specifications shall match the surrounding properties and the natural material of the area.
Yeah, we have natural stone appearance. Because I know that I think the Pretzers use some of that. I know that's the Kobach house, which was the first one constructed up of real, they used stone-like cultured applique.
But the idea
So
is we
we
want
would
it to
take
look
out-
similar to the natural
Almost
Yeah.
organic.
area. Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
So then we wouldn't have to have it a sample submitted.
No,
Or-
I think the architect will get it. They would
Okay.
get it. Yeah.
So how
then-
is stone specification shall be of a natural stone appearance consistent with the adjacent properties and surrounding area.
Perfect.
Perfect.
Oh, excellent. Can you capture
Very good,
that?
Dylan. Very good. And then 9, of course, is our light levels and so on and so forth. We'll staple for our recommendations.
And do we want to, they said they could do it, but do we want to specify the all glass doors shall either be French doors or the appearance of French doors?
Yeah,
That'd be cool. Yeah.
yes. And
Okay,
then-
that would, yeah, that would be a 10th.
Yeah.
And then the
Stafford.
lights on number 8, 9, I think we need to say downward facing lights,
Yeah,
not the spotlights.
Thank you. That shine right down on me.
Yeah, I know. It's
For my clarification, are you requiring an increased presence of log siding than what is in the design?
Yes,
Okay, okay.
that's my intent. Is that everybody else?
basically, Katie, the kind of the rule of thumb is if it can be seen from the road sort of deal.
Got it.
And I'm not going to get real technical on you guys. In all actuality, Keithley Place wraps around my house, even on maps. So even the eastern elevation would be considered being seen from the road, but I'm just going to let it slide. I have a feeling there's going to be some trees planted in there, and it's not that big of a deal to me. I think I'm
Okay.
I'm more about what's applicable to the rest of the building, what's fair to people who are building in the area, other MCACs, and the surrounding neighbors.
Okay, yep, got it. I was just looking at the design standards and I just, yeah, double checking. Thank you.
Do we need to specify it's on those 3 sides? Well, it's always whatever's
Yeah.
facing
Visible
the
from both
roads.
3 sides. So that would be the southwest and east elevations.
Yeah, it's there, south,
Oh, it
north,
is.
and west. Yeah.
Yes, okay, thank you.
Or excuse me, south, north, and west. Yeah, sorry.
It's already there. Okay.
Yeah.
And if there's, I know we won't put this in the recommendation, but if the architect and the can hear that if there's any way to transplant some trees or protect some of them, even for the ambiance of the cabin, it'd be good. But that's outside our purview. It's just a
Totally
try
outside.
your best. You'll want trees.
Okay.
So Dylan, do you have all of those noted so we can just refer to those edits?
I do.
And our
I could read
approval?
them back to you if you'd like.
Okay. So now do we, at this
Do we
point,
have a-
Joy, anybody, do we want to revisit with the applicants, or do we just want to move forward with the motion?
I would like to have Dylan reread them to us, just so we hear
Okay.
them. And
Okay.
then I would say we
Move forward.
recommend recommendations and vote. I don't know, Anne, what do you think?
Yes, I think we just move forward.
Yeah,
We-
okay.
Right.
Very good.
Okay. Number 1, 12-inch peeled round half log siding with chinking shall be used on all exterior elevations on all main wall areas, excluding the gable ends, front porch entryway area, and garage area that are visible from Keithley Place and Keithley Road, the north or the south, north, and west elevations. 2, vertical board and batten siding shall only be used on the gable ends, east elevation, front porch entryway area, and garage area. 3, all windows. Did you guys decide to add the cladding on that one?
We hadn't.
Okay. All divided light windows shall contain exterior grids. 4, the rear deck shall be supported by round heavy timber posts consistent with the posts utilized on the front porch and the main level extension on the north. The deck railing shall consist of wood or metal posts. 5, trim specification.
Rails and posts.
Okay,
5, trim specifications shall be 1x4 or 1x6 wood or composite material with wood grain for windows on the gable ends. I'm sorry, for windows and on the gable ends. The 6, the driveway shall be paved with concrete pavers per planning department approval. 7, any concrete or pavers used for walkways, stairs, or steps shall be colored for the city's approved mix or is approved by the planning department. 8, stone specifications shall be of a natural stone appearance consistent with the adjacent properties and surrounding area. 9, specifications on the design and light levels for the exterior lighting fixtures shall be downcast. 10, all glass doors shall have the appearance of a French style door.
Masterpiece.
very good, Dylan. Thank you for all your hard work. So do I hear a motion?
I can't do it.
I would move approval of MCAC 2202, material change of appearance certification, new construction for 2 Keithley Place, with the amended staff recommendations as directed by the commission.
I would second.
Motion on the floor, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Passes unanimously. And thank you again, Dylan, for all your hard work and your patience with us. Okay, well, that closes our line items. We're going to go ahead and move to section 5, other business. Review and recommendation to the city council regarding an ordinance to amend section 17.04.050A3E of the Historic Preservation Regulations. Commissioners, have you had an opportunity to review this ordinance?
Yes, I have.
Pamela, Ann, you
Yes.
good? Okay, Susan,
Yes.
everybody's good. Do we have any recommendations, anything we'd like to change here? I've read it. I like its terminology. And I'm in agreement with how it stands currently.
So the one question I'd have, Doug, and I guess Dylan, is we routinely and did tonight have things subject to administrative approval by planning. If we completely take out that provision, is that going to eliminate that ability?
So only on a condition that was approved under an MCAC. For example, like the siding that was just approved on 2 Keithley Place,
Right.
it would disallow an administrative approval to change that without having to go back to the commission. Whereas if it states in the actual condition of the approval that it can be staff approved,
That's still okay.
right.
Okay.
And then the buck gets passed when it comes to pavers or other things that fall under the purview of obviously the plan.
I like it because I think, someone could go and get approval for something that we really are adamant about, and then we find out later that it was, not that Dylan would ever do that, but that it was, something was a decision that was made that really goes against what the commission as a whole said. I like that ability, and I agree with Ann. If we say we would let them do it, then they could do it.
And again, what triggered this was the particular MCAC where, I just haven't taken the time to look back at that hearing. It was quite some time ago. I mean, I could just swear that we specified half round peeled and hone or anything of the like again, we all know what triggered this, why we're doing this, particularly when we have a really sensitive area like the Cabin Historic District, where siding and other materials are so important. This is the teeth that we need for our guidelines and for our commission.
And I think it helps staff too. It clarifies.
It does.
And that clarification and simplification is is good because it's subjective. What is minor and what isn't? We should decide that as a commission and then give direction or say, yes, administrative approval is a great for this area. I think
Very
Dylan.
good.
knows.
Very good. Okay, so do I have a motion? Your turn, Tammy.
Not up to it.
Not up to it.
If I
Okay.
faint on camera, I apologize. I am so
Oh.
sick. I am so sorry.
How about you, Commissioner Porter?
Here.
All right, I would make a recommendation to approve the city council ordinance to amend section 1704 050A3E of the historic preservation regulations.
Second.
All in favor?
I,
Aye.
Aye, passes unanimously. Okay, and now we have our last item, 6, notice of council action on item 6 HD 2101 Historic District Modification. Just a quick rundown of what happened with that, Dylan.
So that item went before City Council on March 15th, and City Council decided to basically uphold the denial. Not that HPC forwarded a recommendation for denial. It was basically a gridlock, which was not an approval, and they deliberated and decided to uphold that in a unanimous vote.
Okay,
So it will remain in the district.
very good. And I want to clarify something with that, commissioners. So again, that there's some chit chat out there. This is not going to prevent the owners of what was the McLaughlin Lodge property, now Cheyenne Village property, from subdividing and developing these lots. Now we just get to listen to an MCAC on these individual lots for what are going to have to be, again, what we were presented with tonight, log or log-like buildings. So we definitely will be pretty busy for a while if they move forward with this development. Before we close this evening, Dylan, I know that I'm probably out of line with this. I don't know if I'm saying out of line, but I'm probably missed this. It should have been another business. There's been a request that we go back to in-person meetings. There's some big stuff coming up. We have seen what it can be like to not meet in person, not have materials presented, get that feeling from the audience and from the attendees of their real thoughts on some of the items that we're hearing. So I am going to make a recommendation that the next HPC meeting be held in person at City Council chambers or at City Hall, where we can remain distanced from each other healthily. And in your case, Commissioner Porter, the hybrid system has been proven that it works pretty well. So I would like to put that on the floor, and I would like the commission to vote on that this evening. How do we feel about that?
I would definitely agree.
I would agree, even though I may not be here in May, but I may be here at the beginning of May. I can certainly see it. It wouldn't be in council chambers because that's now the parking office temporarily or something.
Can we put you on a monitor?
Well, they have it that you appear. Yeah, you sort of appear and your head's really big. So, I have a big head. But
Well, you got to position your camera right.
yeah, it would work, because, hopefully I would still be here for the May 4th. I think it's May 4th. But if I'm not, I like Zoom meetings just through the COVID, but I can see
Sure.
people getting more participation, and people that have trouble with making the technology work in our mountainous area. I can see the
Right. And
but
Joanne, and we all understand what's going on, and I'd like for you to know that your participation supersedes your presence. So if you have to zoom in, then by golly, that's the way it's going to be.
Okay.
Okay.
just one other thing, Dylan, this is for you, but underneath it has the commissioners and it has me as chair still. You may want to change that and get Susan on there too.
Is that on the
It's just
digital?
on underneath the word adjournment. I just noticed it. It
On
says
the agenda,
Commissioners Joy
right.
Porter Chair.
Right.
Just, it's a minor thing.
Hmm.
All right.
Probably
I mean, I
kinda
like, you know, having, you know, that
footer.
attention, but I want Doug to get the emails.
Oh, you guys have been pretty good to me, so I appreciate that. And you know what, you want to know something? I think totally we missed that. We were supposed to have Mr. Charles Barnhart in attendance this evening as a potential new seats for the commission, and I haven't seen him in attendance.
I did.
He
Oh,
was,
was he here for a
Yeah.
while?
yeah, he
Okay.
was.
Yeah, he was.
Well, let's just go ahead and put out to him. I think I'll probably go through Judy down at the clerk's office and reach out to him and see if he's still interested in being part of our commission.
Well, we're a great commission, so that
We are.
she would want to be part of this group.
All right.
We're
Well,
fine.
now, do we need an official vote and motion for appearing in person or for that?
No, we-
Okay.
I would.
Dylan
Alright.
can just make sure
Yeah.
it gets announced.
Yeah, and it's actually the discretion of the chairperson.
Okay. Well, I'm
Mm.
going to go ahead and direct us to be meeting in person for the next regular meeting of the Historic Preservation Commission in May 4th, correct? Is that?
think it's the
Yes, May 4th. And folks, have a good evening. Thank you very much.
Thanks
I'm
for
going to be
meeting.
calling this
Bye,
adjournment,
everybody.
and thank you,
Bye.
Dylan, for all
Stella,
your
get
hard work.
better, get better.
Good
again.
night,
Thank
guys.
you. Great job,
Okay.
everybody.
Okay,
You are-
bye-bye. Thank
right.
you, Katie.
Thank you, Kate.
Okay.